in search of ore. And now it's time that you are gone. So farewell, Atlas Miner. And farewell, Mud and Oni too. Who's the sector same to you? The pirate bastards ran him through. So farewell, Atlas Miner. They promised you a diamond mine, but I'll be damned, it's hard to find. I hope there's justice for their crimes. And farewell, Atlas Miner. And farewell, friend, don't take it hard. Getting killed ain't all that bad. I'll treat you well.
Oh, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. We're all sitting behind the scenes here laughing at our new intro song, Atlas Miner. I think there's more to the song, but in any event, welcome to the Metaverse Nomads podcast, where we discuss the metaverse and play-to-earn games we are interested in. Collectively, the Metaverse Nomads leads a play-to-earn gaming guild called Rome, and you can find us at gorome.io. Joining me today are my fellow nomads, and as we go around, let us know what you're most excited to do in Star Atlas. And Jesse, I'll start with you. I think you've got some additional info to share today too.
Sure. So yeah, Star Atlas, man. Are we at the question yet? Is that what we're doing? What we want to do?
Yeah. So tell us what you're most excited to do in Star Atlas.
So my vision for Star Atlas, I mean, I see it as being this grand landscape, and so I do want to influence based on the politics of the game for sure. Also, being a part of our own guild leadership, but also I'm interested in the entrepreneurship side. Like, what will that look like? You know, it depends on what some of the opportunities that come up. That's kind of what I've done in the past in my own entrepreneurial life, is to look at different markets and see what opportunities are available. R&D, I mean, being that we're an Oni faction, I like that we're going to have access to some interesting stealth tech. So I like to kind of dig into the R&D side of creation of products and services for the entrepreneurial side of it within the game. Yep.
Fantastic. And Bonafide's not with us today, everybody, but he's on the road doing some good work. But Jesse, did you happen to know the answer to his question, or that question, his answer to the question?
Yeah, I mean, he is mostly interested in doing something related to politics as well, to kind of have a hand in that. And what was the other thing that he added to that? I think it was
being a business owner, I believe.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. So similar to what I just put out there as well. Politics and entrepreneurship.
Very good. Fancy, how about you?
Hey, everyone. I'm looking forward to when things start burning, really. That's going to be the whole different stage of the game that sets it apart. It's the part of the game that enticed me, really. When reading the white paper, it made sense. Create, fight, destroy.
Very good. Very good. Ray, how about you today?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Good to see everyone. Good to be here. I'm interested in the entrepreneurial side of the game, but the more and more I just go deeper, I want to more or less be a player and just dip my toes into all of what the game is going to have to offer along the way. But, I love the aspect, like Fancy was saying, of just I want to be witnessing while we play that shanty song. Of people's ships just being burned. It's a pretty good song to play at the end of something or life in Star Atlas. So it's pretty cool.
So you're envisioning a fitting like explosion after a major battle. That song playing is kind of the sad song for all the people who are no longer Atlas miners, I guess, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Or they're mining more for more ships to pay for everything that they just lost.
Right. Either way.
Fantastic. Well, I'm Banjo Samurai. We're going to talk a lot about Star Atlas today. We got some other things we're going to talk about. The thing that I'm most excited about, and specifically the Star Atlas, initially, and it still is the politics piece. I think that's a piece I'm really going to enjoy. I have my mindset that I'm going to be in combat somehow. However, a few of us have started playing other games and practicing some of our space combat. And I'll just say this: if you're a master at Call of Duty, or a master at some other game, that does not mean you'll be a master at space flight and space combat. It is a whole new learning curve, and it feels like you're starting all over again. So I know a few people are getting into into different games to understand how to navigate things, and I might just be a happy cargo transport guy at this point.
That's what I was going to ask you. I was gonna say, based on these initial goes at this gameplay, I mean, are you going to like leave it to the space spider jocks out there and like just cruise along in your hoopty? You know, like, are you saying now, I'm not sure if I'm up for this, but taking a different approach? Is that what you're getting?
At this rate, I'm getting really good moving product from one star system to another. I'm doing good at running away. I mean, I'll say that much. I've done that. I've got my skill up there, but I'm certainly don't profess to be an ace combat pilot, but hopefully by the time the UI or the Unreal Engine version comes out, I'll be able to get something done.
Nice.
Yeah, I think we're taking it for granted how the learning curve, how steep it will be to get comfortable enough to have any of these things that we're talking about with burning ships and huge battles going on. We'll see how it goes.
Well, that's a great point, Ray. And you know, the specific game that I'm playing, and I'm playing it with another guildmate. I mean, I have a flight stick and a throttle with about 25 buttons on it, and it takes up all the buttons just to fly this ship. So when you think about the detail of actually flying a ship and thrusters and hyperspace and all this other stuff.
Turn signal.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, they do have like bobbleheads you can get in your spaceship and stuff too. I haven't gotten that far yet. I haven't heard enough credits for a bobblehead. But at the end of the day, there's a skill gap that everyone's going to be walking into this game with. And if you're not trying to figure something else out ahead of time, you're going to be behind the curve. That's just the way I see it.
Well, it also makes you wonder, like, the different aspects of the game, because there's at some point they will include racing within the game, and so you know, and what is the way that you'll be able to approach that? Will it be desktop only? Will it be VR? Will you be able to get in a full-on militarized, you know, combat rig, you know, that where you can full-on rotate, you know, 360 degrees, you know? What will you eventually be able to do? Because you imagine if someone has that set up, I mean, it's game over.
Yeah, it's well, and you know, the more fine-tuned or specific your ship gets, then also the more responsive it is as well, right? Which is a whole nother skill level that you have to deal with, because one small tap can send you flying.
Yeah.
But I have some thoughts about races, and maybe not craft against craft races, but you could go space station to space station races, because there is a level of navigation involved. There's some, you know, am I going to go around this sun to get away from its gravitational pull? There's a whole bunch of stuff you can do that's not even just racing against another person, where you're just racing for time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would encourage anybody listening, if you think you're going to be an ace out there, get out there and practice, because you're going to need it. Go ahead, man.
I was going to say that on that note, like with all the activity that goes on within the metaverse, will there be, this is a question we need to ask on a town hall. I'm really curious to know, will there be ways to watch feeds of camera angles for places and things that you're not directly involved in? And I ask that because one of the things that we talked about doing that is a business that is within Star Atlas, but also without, as an extension of this Metaverse Nomads, is you've heard it first here, is Bar Atlas, to where we could actually be doing just, hey, grab your cocktails, grab your beer. We're going to talk about what happened in the metaverse in Star Atlas today. You know, did you see that race? Did you see that this guild took out such and such? Did you see the run for the diamond? Whatever it is. So it's like a perishable but immediate news what's happening in Star Atlas. So the idea of having camera angles from different ways, or whether maybe that's you just, you know, hey guys, you've got a camera of that, send it in.
Right.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
Well, you know, it's kind of like traffic cams out on the freeway, right? Maybe these nav beacons will have cameras attached to them that you can tune into and kind of, or maybe set them up along a route, and you can kind of do the whole you know, Formula 500 race where the spaceships are flying in and flying past.
What if
know.
that's a role? What if that's a role within the metaverse? We haven't thought about that. Just
decentralized
media,
streaming.
and all you're doing is you're showing up in your super fast craft to just position yourself so that you have a great camera angle of whatever's going on, and people
That's
are
a
going to pay
great
you
idea.
for it. There you go.
That's a great idea.
Not some
Yeah.
cameras on that. You're good.
Yeah, I'm wondering if there's going to be a decentralized third-party platform that we might know of, like DTube or what's the other one? Can't recall right now, but there's a handful out there. And I wonder if Star Atlas is going to have something in-house, just like they're doing with the DAOs. But Lumina mentioned, like, don't forget about illegal racing in the third zone. I was going to mention that before you started talking, Jess, that there's going to be some crazy races going on, Mario Kart style, but just in space. You can just shoot someone down, and that's it. They're out of the race.
So Jesse, I think you just created a career path for all those kids in AV club in high school.
Right?
Right now, they can go right into the metaverse and put their skills to use. And going back to deep space comments, Ray. Now having played a game where that has a similar safe zone, medium zone, dangerous zone, space is vast. And once you get out there, you see nobody. I mean, it's empty.
Yeah.
You're flying forever. So I'm really curious, and I'll be honest, I haven't gotten the skill level yet where I can scan for what's out there, but you're staring at a black screen a lot. And I imagine it's going to be the same way in Deep Zone with Star Atlas as well.
Yeah, that immersiveness of just being in deep space, it's going to be a pretty cool experience when we're able to experience it.
Yeah, even just doing hyperspace jumps from one point to the other and not flying into a sun. Monty is the other guild member who's playing, and we're both learning at the same time. And he and I have both done, a dirt dive into the sun as part of a hyperdrive. So all this to say is there's going to be a skill level that I'm excited about. It's not going to be as simple as click and point. And some of the people who are speaking vocally about how they're going to do PvP probably need to practice.
Well, you mentioned something else that I've given some thought to, over the past 6 months or so as we've been really digging into theory crafting about Star Atlas. And that is that space is vast. It's deep. And so in the very early stages, I mean, the game is going to be made for a larger player base than we have right now within our community. So I don't really see it as when you go out to deep space that you're just bumping into people. It's a vast place. And I remember when I first played EVE Online years ago. I never got fully immersed in it, but I did play it for a while. And I remember that experience like, man, I didn't really run into anyone for the longest time. I was just out there in blackness.
Yeah,
and that may be
interesting.
Go ahead,
having
Nancy.
to calculate how much you're going to need for each journey. Like, you're not just going to be able to go off on an adventure. You're going to need to know how much fuel will take to get to one place. Will you be able to get back? Will you have to call the space AA?
Well, it's funny you say that, Fancy. In this particular game, there is a third party who built a website, and it's something simple like I need gas or something like that. You basically put where you're at, and they bring you fuel so you can get back on your route.
Yeah.
So I think the same thing's going to happen in Star Atlas too. And I know months ago they talked about people having their own, fuel depot supply line, and after playing this, I see why.
They might need to make some smaller refuelers before that becomes a thing. Can you imagine getting a $10,000 machine out to you whenever you need something?
Yeah, come fill up my X4.
Save
Stuck.
and then lose your freaking your NFT.
So we had some pretty big things this past week in Star Atlas. We had the town hall and we had a Twitter Spaces. We're going to kind of put it all together as one event because they do work hand in hand, and some of the faces and information is the same. But what do you guys think of the town hall and Twitter Space this week?
Shoot, before we do that, I did forget to jump in and share the.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead, Jess.
So before we jump into the town hall, which was a fantastic town hall, by the way, and lots of great stuff to share there, I wanted to tell you a little bit about two of the episodes that we have coming up here. We were actually supposed to have a guest this week, but we moved them to the week after. But I think it's close enough now. We can tell you that Chipdo from Star Atlas is going to be here with us next Sunday. So that will be pretty cool to actually have someone with us from the Star Atlas team here. So you guys want to make sure you're not going to miss that as we get into some theory crafting and just learn a bit about him. He has an interesting background and want to hear how that translates into what he's doing now and Now he seems to be a regular part of the Star Atlas Town Hall. So it's going to be exciting to have Chip Doe, who's been a fan of the show and listens to most of these. So it'll be great to have him here on the show with us. Then the following week, we are going to have someone that we've been kind of exploring and learning from and sharing ideas with, that has already stepped into a place where they have started their own. They have a guild. They have a guild within the Oni faction. I'm trying to think of the best way to share this, but they understand more than honestly than we do at this point about what that means to take a DAO within your own guild. And so one of the things that I thought would be helpful for all of us here that are part of this community is to talk about, this is a play to earn space now, but what does it mean for you to be a part of a guild that is also play to earn? Because then you're looking at the business of a guild and how people can take part in that, what to look for if you're someone that's looking for a guild. So that's going to be an interesting conversation with MMA, who is also of the Oni faction, and they will be guests on the show, Metaverse Mining Alliance, on the 13th. So 2 exciting shows we have coming up. You definitely want to be on. Stay tuned for those.
Thanks, Jesse. All right. So Town Hall, what do you guys think? There's some mixed thoughts about what they did at the Town Hall. I think we're going to see some. Well, I'll just tell you mine first. I thought it was comprehensive from a development team perspective. I think it was light on alpha compared to some of the other ones. It's hard to beat the cream, Town Hall that we had previously. But I think you're starting to see Star Atlas come into their own as a I don't want to call it a corporation, but as a dev team. You're starting to see the different pieces of it, not just the dev and the CEO. You're seeing recruiting and things like that. What'd you guys think?
I thought it was okay. Like you said, nothing like cream. Can't have all these town halls getting you on a high. But any type of Star Atlas content that comes out gets me pretty riled up. So I'm always in support of it. I thought it was good.
Yeah. I myself, I enjoyed it for a number of reasons. One is because it shows that this is the second town hall this year, I believe, that they're back into the flow of things and they have their sights set on where things are going to go. And unlike other projects in the space, honestly, some of the other ones, it feels like they really do have a grand vision and they're unrolling it and having it unfold in a way that is meaningful, but they also want to share what is going on. They brought on someone that's a part of the team that's bringing on talent, and shared that they're about the 150 mark of people on the team now around the planet. And that continues to grow, and they continue to hire from the community, which I think is fantastic. But it's also cool to just hear who is taking part. And now that they do have some of the recognition for this project, they do kind of get a lot of talent to pick from. So I thought that was good. I am curious about the amount of ships. I guess there's going to be 51 ships, including Titans that are going to be released this year. My thoughts are the Titan shouldn't be released this year. It's too much of an influence within the overall game power struggle to introduce so early on. I think that should be well after. And something that guilds can kind of build up to rather than something that's going to be on our face because an investor says, hey, you know what? I want to be able to have this ship and just dominate. So I think that's too soon. The other ships, my question would be, have they thought out the full-on impact if all those ships do sell? Because one of the questions I had this past week in Foundation Room was, you guys, they said they were surprised by having sold $175 million worth of ships. Well, it's you minted those ships, you put them on sale. Was there any past sale that suggests that sales were going to be light? So if you knew that, then you shouldn't have been surprised. That's my take on it. And the other thing that stood out for me was that they kind of suspected that they'd only have 70 to 80% of the ships actually in being commissioned, actually on missions and staked. And that was another one that was confusing to me. It's kind of I would have never guessed that. It's who's going to spend that kind of money on ships and say, I just like the way my ship looks. I don't really need to make any money on it right now. So I'm hoping that the ships that are coming out, the 51 of them throughout the year, that the reward system, the emissions, has really been taken into consideration so that they can adjust as they need to with the market flow while selling all of these ships into the community.
Well, to that end, they kind of backed themselves into a corner, didn't they? Right? We have, I think we have it on record that they said emissions are at max emissions right now for what the ships that we have. We have 51 new ships coming. We also have Cream, and its various things are going to draw emissions or drive emissions as well. So it seems to me that they're going to have to reduce emissions on the original ships just to increase elsewhere. And it's going to be, they're backed into a corner because they base it on VWAP or whatever that acronym is. I can't recall what it is. And the more you add to the VWAP, the more by nature you have to emit, right? So it's going to be interesting. I think to your end, Jesse, around the Titan ships, what I really think would solve the problem of basically creating a super whale too early in the game is the person buys it or wins an auction. And then when the real game goes live, it takes a year for it to be built, right? Like you have to see in each faction area, you see this big Titan ship being built. And I think the challenge there is some of it's already built into lore, right? Busan's Last Stand is already built, but maybe they could have it in dock for repairs or something to keep it from roaming around.
Yeah, that's quite an interesting point of view. Imagine if they sell blueprints for the Titans instead of the whole ships.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you have to build it, right? So you get the blueprint, but you have to go through the process of buying and building it. I like that idea as well.
I like it a lot. It's what I was going back to earlier about giving guilds a chance to kind of build themselves up based on the spread of ships as they are now towards an event, kind of like we've talked about in the past about the gates, this Dyson sphere, you know, and so doing that sort of thing as building towards it rather than just here you are in the very beginning. I think that makes for a better overall economy and overall gameplay experience for sure.
Yeah, and I think it just creates a level of realism, right? It's not just something that pops into the space because somebody spent a bunch of money. You see the start of it, and maybe even it creates some sort of mini game for the local factions to help contribute to the success of the Titan. You know, there's so much they could do there. Maybe we can get some answers from Chipto.
Maybe.
Any other thoughts? I mean, we can jump kind of into what they talked about. Here's what I didn't like about the town hall, and I'll say this up front, and I'll say with all due respect to everyone on the dev team, because I truly like them all. I love them all. The whole Metaverse news thing before the town hall just threw me off. It was, it didn't feel like it fit. I mean, I'm sure there's a venue for it, but when I get on a town hall, I want to know about Star Atlas.
Exactly. It's not why I'm there. Yeah. The other thing I will say, just because it's my nature and it's what I do, that what led to those questions that I asked is that one of the expectations, meeting community expectations is a tough thing for all development teams, all projects. There's so many unknowns. But one of the expectations going into ship staking was that as the market flexed and adjusted the price of Atlas, that the emissions would adjust as well. And so on the 16th of December, we saw Atlas at roughly 12 cents. It was somewhere around there. And it dipped all the way down into the high 4 cent range. But because of the information that was shared about us being at capacity for emissions, there was no flex allowed. So that became an instance where community expectations about what they were told. Now, again, nothing is hard fast, but that was what an expectation was. And that's one of the first times where it was not met. And so from an economic standpoint, I have to ask myself, like, how did you not see this stuff coming? What were the things that threw a curveball to you? Was it and the two things that were mentioned where it was the amount of ships that were sold and the amount of people that were staking it. And for, looking at an economic flow within a game, that seems like some strange things to have overlooked. So everything else on point, but I just wanted to mention that this is one thing because it was an area where an expectation was not met.
Well, and I think there was some vulnerability there, an acknowledgement when they talked about recruiting and they asked if they were looking for economists. So it looks like there's still an opportunity that they know, or maybe an acknowledgement that they still need more people who can pay attention to that stuff. And if you think about, this being not an ecosystem that's not closed, it's going to have off ramps into so many different economies and markets. they're going to need somebody who understands international finance. It can't just be somebody who understands game mechanics and game finance, because you're talking about real world money here that's going to have a play or an impact on the game, right? The market's down right now because Bitcoin's down. And you can point the fingers at why that's happening, but it had an impact on the overall market, which is going to require some very quick response from these games who are building economies that are tied to real markets.
Yeah, I forget the interview that Wagner was on recently. I can't recall the name, but there was a cry for anyone who's interested in an economics position, I think, if I'm remembering correctly. Yeah, there you go. So if you're out there, join on up.
Some other things that were mentioned that I did think that were positive on the town hall is that if you're going to be an influencer in this space that is the metaverse as it unfolds, then it also does well to pay attention to policy. And so it sounds like they're going to be doing that as well as educating people on what can be done and be an active part of that conversation. So it sounds like they are looking to participate on that front, which does a number of things for them. It makes them a voice as a force for good that policymakers and legislators may actually want to pay attention to, because they're actually wanting to be a part of that conversation. So if you're going to be something that's going to create this huge landscape that's going to be open, and that's the other thing they did mention, is they do want to continue to build this so that it's open, so it's that other people can build things on top of it and participate in it. So those are two pieces: the openness, and also the wanting to educate and be a part of informing policymakers on how the metaverse is developing and unfolding.
Well, and to that end, I think crypto's a little bit behind on lobbying. We think that, well, I can only speak for the U.S. I can't speak for other countries, but in the U.S., the lobbying groups are typically the people who write the legislation, and all the elected people just pass it. And if we don't have a crypto or maybe a metaverse lobbying group who's helping write this stuff, then you're going to put it in the hands of people who don't know what they're doing or have a vested interest in making sure that's not successful. And right now, in the States, there's some word about executive orders related to crypto, which I think is kind of driving some of the downward pressure in the market right now. But when you start to get people who have an ideological agenda against things like crypto, then things start to go really bad. So I hate to say it, but these dev companies, DeFi companies, crypto foundations, they need to pony up and start lobbying, or we're going to get screwed. There's still a chance we could in relation to play-to-earn gaming.
Well, I think it's definitely something that's going to be an uphill battle, because policymakers are experiencing the death throes of fiat all around the world. And so it's not policy is not just about coming from a place of, hey, what can we do to create good for everyone? It's also trying to keep some of the old model in place that no longer serves us. And so we're up against that as well.
Yeah, and there was a news article that came out this week around a new political action committee that it was funded with $20 million. And I was thinking that barely opens the door in DC, right? 20 million is nothing. If you really want to get up there, you got to start spending some of your ETH and Bitcoin earnings on, 100 million is probably where it would be a good number. 20 million barely gets you started in Star Atlas. All right. So what else did we hear? We heard some updates on the DAO, right? So we know that the DAO has had some concerns that they had to pivot on. Does anyone want to explain the pivot and the potential dates or why they pivoted?
Well, their explanation was claiming emissions leads to multiple users, which could negatively impact voting weight. So it just does sound like a quite technical problem and they are working on like another method of doing it, but it's something that could just put them back like a couple weeks.
Yeah, he did mention
end of Feb.
Yeah, I was listening to the language on that, and it did sound like at least February was mentioned a couple times going back to Q1, but it still sounds like it's their top priority, and it is right around the corner. One of the things that's kind of goes in line with that, which is one of the comments here I saw Volker mentioned on here, that some of the coins, not both, but Atlas being on FTX and Kraken recently. I think on the 25th is when it went to Kraken. And I don't have full confirmation of this, but I did see somewhere that it was mentioned that Coinbase, and by the way, it was said that this was Coinbase's own doing. This is not any interaction with Star Atlas and Coinbase, but Coinbase is going to be listing Atlas, but not Polis right away. So,
yeah, this is a screen cap from one of the articles. There were a couple that I read, but like no confirmed announcements. Yeah, it's just hearsay.
I mean, it's great. Whenever we see, I mean, at some point, hopefully it finds its way over to Binance. But the more exchanges, you know, the more stable the coin will end up being as you have more people that have access to it, for sure. So.
Yeah. I think it also helps with the on-ramps and off-ramps, right? Because right now people have to get Solana. If they say they're Coinbase user, and I use Coinbase, have to buy Solana, have to move it over to the Solana blockchain and start doing those different transfers. So anything that reduces friction in a system and reduces some level of cost is going to be fantastic.
Yeah.
You know, the overall industry, and I think Coinbase and other exchanges are waking up, because I think, you know, when you look at the overall market, it's a $17 billion market just in GameFi, right? So that's a big chunk of money. You know, we see our typical ones at the top with Axie, the Sandbox, and Engine, which I need to learn more about Engine. I don't know enough yet. Gala, and then when you go down, you see farther down, you'll see Star Atlas. But at the end of the day, when you look at these projects here, there's a lot of money in these projects. I mean, 3.3 billion in Axie and 3.5 billion, or 8 billion in Axie and 3.5 billion in Sandbox. That's nothing to shake a stick at. And that's why I say when you're going to go lobby Congress, you don't bring 20 million bucks when you're a $3.8 billion market cap.
Yeah, and that's down from about 7 billion from just even a couple of weeks ago as the market dipped. But the GameFi was in Metaverse. Both those categories were right around 24 billion. So
yeah. Well, you know, one of the things that go ahead, Nancy.
That is one bad thing about using two coins. In all the charts, you're going to appear like each of them are going to appear half as much as it would be if it was just like one coin, like a lot of projects do.
Well, one of the things that we've all seen is a reduction in price, and we know this Polis DAO is coming. And I can't tell you, it seems like such an opportunity time to buy Polis in anticipation of the DAO. It's so cheap. You know, I think people it's kind of sleeping on it, to tell you the truth.
Yep.
Yeah, I think a lot of people in the crypto Twitter space, outside of the people who are in the community of Star Atlas solely, or majority of their time is spent there, I think a lot of people after this downturn in the market put Star Atlas or Polis on the sidelines compared to any other projects they were in before. They probably got a wind of Star Atlas being a AAA game to come.
Well, and I think people who have been in the market since at least 2017 understand what happens, right? But there's a lot of people who are new, who are probably freaking out and just offloading and creating cheap assets for other people. I just don't see anybody who's been through this before doesn't see this as the time to go in. I mean, this is the time to buy, in my opinion.
You know what I think it is? I think that when the market is doing really well, people tend to spread the wealth around to a lot of different projects, even projects that they're not really up on and very close to. But as the market starts to drop into, you know, bear cycles, people tend to kind of tighten their purse strings, and especially on projects that if they're not completely up on. So the people that see the opportunity, like us, it's because we focus on a weekly basis, on a daily basis, paying attention to what's happening with Star Atlas, and we've seen the project unfold. So in situations where you're not so close to the project, you're probably not going to be as bull on it as you might be otherwise.
Yeah, that's a good point. You know, I think there's some other questions that have been coming up about the DAO now that people like Zesk who have been talking about it. We had him on last week. He also, just for everyone's awareness on the show, his latest Medium article covering Polis is also up. And I think he also released an article on Newtopia. I haven't read that one yet, but I'm curious to see what his Newtopia looks like. But there's been some questions about how DAO shows up, right? Is it a vote that has to remain in locked positions to vote, or can you move it down to a faction DAO? There's a lot of things we don't know yet that can impact how the game is played.
Right.
Yeah, I'm really interested in the flexibility between these different staking options that we'll have.
Mhm.
Love to
Because,
know more.
yeah, because let's say that they have I think the lowest was going to be, is it 3 months or 6 months? And then all the way out, I think it was like 6 months out to 3 years.
Yeah,
But you would be able to get your rewards quarterly. So let's say that we get a whole bunch of people that are super stoked about it, and they like, I want to get the full amount that I can. And I go, let's say they just go 2 years. And then all of a sudden, that's the high level DAO. Then all of a sudden, faction DAOs, become available, and then regional DAOs. And you're like, oh, I can't pull out the stuff I have up there. So are you going to have are you going to save your polis and stage it at the different levels of influence? Like, what's the game plan?
Mhm.
Yeah, there's
But
definitely going to be a trade-off of the pros and cons of even having your money in, all of it, partial, and then over what amount of time. I'm sure people are going to want more polis for staking it, but then where do you stake it if you're thinking, end game, when you're being an actual active member of the game in the game? So,
what I think there's another concern for people who, when Polis DAO opens up, and let's say they take a 3-year lock on their Polis, are they going to miss anything that comes out between now and that 3-year expiration or maturation point? Are they going to miss out on something else they can stake their Polis to because they have it locked up? And that creates a concern for me personally in going for the longest lock. I want to be able to have some flexibility with what I do.
And then so you're going to end up weighing that against earning potential, what you can earn from being staked, and then the governance be based on the influence that you can have in game. So if you end up locking up all of your polis in the external DAO, and then you miss out on opportunities for influence right all the way down to the region.
Yeah. This is a little bit off topic, but I think it's a common question, and it's from a member of our guild. So let's talk about it really quick. We've talked about it before, but I think it's worth bringing up again. We've got people who still use the Phantom wallet exclusively, and we know that some people, even members of the council here, have moved to a ledger. Anyone want to talk about why they did it and what they're hoping to avoid?
Yeah.
I could before Jess, because I think Jess has done that already, as well as Fancy, and then a handful of Romans in the Rome guild. I haven't done that yet. I do have and had a ledger for a while, but as much as from what I learned and also experienced, as much as it can be an added layer of security, for the most part, as long as you just keep your private keys to yourself, you're pretty much safe. And there's the debate that goes back and forth sometimes, but unless you're being keylogged on your computer or you've stored your seed phrase on your computer, whether it was a snapshot or an email. Like, these things are the reasons why people majority of the time lose their money, or they just they're just not as responsible or understanding of the importance of keeping just the seed phrase secured off anything online. But I'm a strong believer in, although I have my ledger, not at this point do I use it for Star Atlas assets in the way that Jess is going to explain that he does. So
a couple thoughts on that. Cold storage, man, there's just so many reasons why it's a good idea. If you're in a situation where you've got it in your software wallet, as Ray mentioned, if no one has that key phrase, you're kind of safe, but there are ways that you still aren't safe. There's some times where you're maybe in a hurry, or you're going through the motions and you sign something on a site, you can accidentally relinquish access to things that are within your wallet. Right. For that reason, even with the software wallet, with Phantom, with the different wallets you can create there, I tend to store each different project in a different wallet. So that way, if I am connecting to something related to those NFTs or something on a site, it's still related to that one. Now, the inconvenience of this thing here is that literally, and I've actually have 2 different places where I'm doing this with Star Atlas ships. All the ships that require like daily maintenance, that's kind of a pain. I have moved them into a wallet where it is software where I can just click and go. But any ships that I have that, are of a higher value, I have in a different wallet. But you literally have to go through claim, approve that. Oh, buy, every the fuel, approve that. Oh, convert that, claim that fuel now, approve
Settle.
that.
Yeah.
It's like you literally are clicking and clicking and clicking. And I can't imagine that some point in gameplay you would want to do that. Now, this was mentioned on the town hall because someone did ask this question. And Wagner did say, of course, the last thing you want to do is make it prohibitive to gameplay. And so it'll be interesting to see how that will be handled. But if you have something that you absolutely positively don't want to lose, don't want to be sad about the fact you lost it, there's no safer place than putting it in cold storage and then taking the inconvenience to just say, all right, I approve these transactions.
Yeah, I think the handsome one here, he's got a good follow-on question in relation to a hard wallet, and I think there's some misunderstanding of what a hard wallet really does. It doesn't store your assets; it just stores your keys. And as long as you have that 12 or 18 or 24 word passphrase written down somewhere, you can load those up to any wallet anytime. So many people, myself included, we have that list written down in 2 locations and never with the wallet, the ledger itself, right? Because that's a giveaway. You have a ledger and you have all your passwords there. They know exactly what to do. Go ahead.
So, sorry to interrupt, Andrew, but even if the ledger was there, they could simply just buy a ledger, and as long as they have the 24 word, then they can just, as we do on new devices, Yeah, so you can always just put in those phrases with any hardware device, because what the hardware device does is give you access to what's on chain. So your funds do not live and reside on any hardware wallet that you buy, whether Trezor or Ledger, but it only simply gives you access to do things with what you own, your currencies, which live on the blockchain. So it's just that type of interface. It's not like the hardware wallet itself is what is going to be stolen and then people will take from the hardware wallet. But it's the key phrases, the 24 words that allow anyone to just access through a ledger, because that's the media, that's the in-between part of someone taking your words and then able to access them on the blockchain. It's that ledger. So as long as you keep the seed word safe, and that's why I started off saying is no matter what seed words you have for the ledger or for the wallet, as long as you keep that safe, you're ultimately going to be safe and much safer if, for whatever percentage we want to add to that with the ledger versus not the ledger. But yeah.
I have an added process that, this is just my thing. I don't know that I recommend anyone else do it, but what I do is I actually recode my key phrases in a way that only I know them. But twice a year, I actually go through and make sure I know the actual recovery. I go through the recovery process, not like the whole recovering a wallet, but you can, on ledgers especially, you can go in and go through the process of testing that you actually know your key phrase. And so I do that twice a year just to make sure that it's like just a routine to make sure I'm good to go if I had to restore.
Yeah, and as for the problems that it creates, I'm sure, a problem creates solutions. So somebody is going to figure out the solution so you don't have to click every time on a ledger, and it provides more security maybe on a web wallet. It seems to me that one of the solutions could be some sort of escrow contract where you put your items up in an escrow account, like a smart contract, when you start the game, and then it pulls them out into your more secure wallet when you leave the game. But something will come.
Yeah, you can do. Even now, there's ways to write that in to where you can do a form of blind signing, to where you can say that for maybe Star Atlas does something like this: for this window of time or gameplay, you agree to this contract, and that contract expires, and then it goes back to whatever. But during this time, you're in deep space, and as long as you're out there, your NFT is exposed.
Yeah. Totally. But good question, Mega Raid Boss. Good to see you, man. These are the things that need to be talked about because there's a lot of people who have those questions out there. We got some more information from the town hall. They talked about global polish, which I think it's good that they're constantly looking for ways for tweak and make things better. I don't think that they really announced anything other than they were working on it. But they also, acknowledge that they want the game to be more like a game. So we're going to see some of the user interface change, so it feels less like we're going to an exchange that's outside of Star Atlas, and they're going to make it more internal, or look more specific to the game itself. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I think if that was paired with like a Coinbase listing, that'd be really awesome. Simplified way of using the interface and without the the settle, that would make things a lot better. Like their plan is to get rid of or replace all of Serum, if possible. Yeah, looking forward to that.
If you've played a game that has some sort of economy, it's as simple as you going and you buying the assets or selling the assets. It should be intuitive and feel right for the game. It shouldn't feel like I have to go to a third-party website to understand how to buy and how to sell. I think they're doing better. You know, I see less people talking about having to I forget the word, but they were having to go to Radium to settle, right? They had to go to settle their purchase, which is a new idea, even for people who are into crypto. That's not always that common. So the more they make it feel like Star Atlas and there's 3 factions that have an economy that trade against each other, I think the better.
I wish we didn't have to do that now. I mean, that's that extra step. Even like I was saying with the device, is like, oh, now I got to claim the stuff I just bought. I would have been happy with just having bought it the first time with the single transaction.
Were any of you impacted by the Solana issues? I know there was something that happened, but I must have missed it. I must have been active outside of those windows.
Yeah,
there was a time where there were delays, but that's all I saw, where it was like you'd have to try and get a transaction, and you'd have to try it a couple different times, but that was it.
Got it.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead, Dan.
TPS was still quite high, really, even when it was congested. Like if you were looking at Soul Scanner, I think is sometimes it was at like 1 or 2, but like the majority it was still in the high hundreds. And yeah, I was able to do everything I needed to.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I do when I wake up in the morning is go claim and reset my ships. Maybe I'm just getting on at a decent hour. It's never really congested for me. Somebody want to walk us through the changes to Cream and kind of what Score V1 is turning into?
Yeah, so the teams who were working on it, they went over this in the town hall and their Twitter space quite a bit. But so there's 3 separate teams focusing on like one of these each now. So mining, extraction, crafting, plus material requirements, and then space exploration. So yeah, that's going to be really awesome. It seems the features that the community want the most, and they're the ones they're going to try and bring.
Well, I think the idea that we're getting some version of Score V1 ahead of time, and it's I think they said it replaces it or will be brought in sooner because it's going to be important to the crafting and the mining experience. So if I were to speculate, I would venture to say that we must have to go out and there'll be a group of people who maybe find the assets. Maybe there's some exploration and finding the planets. Maybe there'll be a use for those Visas opods. It'd be really cool if we start to see some ship-specific missions now instead of just staking and earning, which is great because we're making money on our assets. But at the end of the day, it's a continuation of the idea that they're looking for ways to make the game better, faster. So I'm excited to see what they do with the space exploration piece, and we've learning more about crafting as well.
Well, that raises the question, and I've mentioned this in the past, but when will the specific benefits and detriments of the ships play a role in whether it's specific missions or even just within the staking or even within the crafting? I can give you an example. We know that one of the stock modules that comes on the multi-role Calico Guardian is hydroponics. So does that mean that there should be reduced cost for food on a ship? You know, this thing here, yeah. So you see hydroponics there near the back. So is that going to reduce the cost of food on a ship? That's one. If the ship is not being used in a mission, or if there's excess food being produced, can I sell that food? So can it become a moneymaker?
Mhm. Well, I brought that question up in Foundation regarding food because I noticed, one day's worth of food for an X4 is way different than one day's worth of food for a pack light, right?
Right.
And the crew, even if you factor in additional crew, it wasn't lining up, and there was an acknowledgement that it was kind of a crude system based on the VWAP, and it wasn't about the number of crew, but that is something they're going to be looking into. And I think the hydroponics thing is a great way to think about how you reduce your costs. But we also have races that don't eat, right? So if you got something like Ooster, are they going to have a food equivalent that they must keep on board their ship, or do they get some sort of inherent advantage by being an AI?
It's got like a 50-gallon drum of oil.
There you go.
Yeah, I think that rock, paper, scissors aspect of the game is going to be spread across all aspects of the game. So but we just don't know. We could always theorycraft on that, but maybe it is a drum, a keg of oil.
And what does a being of light eat, right? I mean, what do the Fatoli eat?
Right. And then also you've got the like the Chi. You've got the rainbow ships where these things are supposed to be really fuel efficient wherever they go. So does that dramatically cut down on your cost? When do those things come into play? Is that going to be in score 1, where all of a sudden the type of ship that you're staking consumes resources differently? No.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think when you originally staked a fleet, it gave you a little score system of how much it would consume of each. So, for example, like you said, the Visas, it used more power, but it used less food every time you resupply. And each one had its own like little rating, which I think is kind of like a smaller interpretation of it now.
Well, I can tell you, as beat down as my pack light looks, they eat like kings on that ship based on what I'm spending. I mean, granted, the 4R costs are relatively small, but they're eating like 4,000 food units a day. I mean, they must be pretty fat inside that ship. Big
Sounds like
seats.
they're tapping into some of the cargo.
There we go. So we also learned some other things about ships, though, which were new. We already talked about there being 51 ships, 3 of them being Titans, but we also learned that there's going to be a reveal this coming week. I think this coming Tuesday, we're going to get a reveal, and then that ship goes on sale on Thursday. And they also acknowledge that this is going to be, I think, the lowest price point yet for a ship at $15, which is pretty cool.
It is. Well, speaking of that, they wanted to make it accessible. So I appreciate that part. But the part I'm still hung up on, because I think it can have a dramatically negative impact, and that is the Titans. Like, what do we think are the pros beyond raising up to 5 million per, so 15 million, aside from the capital raise for Star Atlas? What do you think their team thinks are some of the benefits of ejecting these massive Titans in so early into gameplay?
I don't see an advantage other than kind of the cool factor. It's probably going to make it for an amazing press release.
Right.
But beyond that, within the game, I think it's really about what they can do. And we know we're a ways away from getting into the actual space and seeing what they can do. So right now I see it as kind of an emissions magnet, which I'm not too happy about.
Yeah, I think it would have been fantastic if we were able to get a spreadsheet or some type of a document or information on how long it would take and what's required. It doesn't have to be set in stone, but before any Titan ships come out, because then you'll have everyone seeing how realistic it would be for any one group or amount of individuals to maybe build that out. We have rough information on, it might take, months depending on the ship, and then maybe, close to a year, depending on the size of the ship. But if we just have them in existence and people are through the Dutch auction just throwing down money, it's more for marketing purposes. You're going to have a lot of attention, like Banjo was saying, that comes into play. But when it comes to the game itself, there isn't technically, although we're playing the game, there isn't a game where any of those things could be utilized in the way that we all think they will be in the future.
Based on the past ship releases, there's a couple other questions that come to mind for these Titans. One is, I'd be curious to calculate if we took the cost amount compared to what the 4Rs cost now for regular ship. Like, what is maintenance on a $5 million ship? Is it 50 grand a month? Just to keep that thing operating. Crew wise, are you going to get all of the NPC crew to run that ship? If I wanted to buy a Titan, it's just Whitticus, Jesse here with a Titan, and I'm just cruising around myself, and I got all my NPC crew. Can I do that, or does it actually require a whole guild? And let's say I have this. What are my options beyond staking? What am I going to do with this thing? Am I going to say, I'm not going to be flying here and flying there. I'm not going to be like on a pleasure cruiser. You're probably going to find a place and stay put until you have reason to move it. So what is the use case for this thing beyond just owning this massive, and what's this long list of modules that are going to come with it as well? Like, what all is on board?
Right. So I'm thinking along the lines of also what Falcor mentioned. It's going to bring a lot more users, but a lot of these the entities that would be able to purchase or bid for these would be large guilds that have many members ready to go, which is going to help boost the economy, for what it's worth when that time comes for the use case of a Titan. But until then, it's a long time in between. And then that's why I was mentioning it would be nice to just know what it takes to build out one of these things, because then it could really get everyone going and hopeful of acquiring one over time if you didn't have enough money to just buy it right out as a large guild or an investor.
Outside of the topic of Titans, what we have learned, and if I'm oversharing, I don't remember where I learned this, but in any event, what we have learned is that there's going to be an airdrop in the future of people who are buying ships now, and you'll get your crew and your modules airdropped to you.
Yeah. And
then once people start crafting ships, those will not include the crew or the modules. So there is a benefit to buying now, whether it's a $15 ship or a Titan. And I imagine that will be a pretty amazing airdrop if you're buying a Titan with everything you're going to get. Ultra brought up a great question, and I think we've discussed this before, but what makes you run a capital ship with NPCs versus in real life players? What do you guys think?
Well, it was alluded and mentioned that there's going to be certain perks and benefits to having real life, humans running any particular part of the ship. So again, that's basically all I remember hearing. There was nothing specific on that, but you're going to have buffs or particular stat boosts. In which ways we don't know yet, but yeah,
I haven't heard that one, the buff real versus NPC. The buffs that I recall were two. One, if they actually trained at the same academy, and two, the time of service that they've spent together on the same ship. And be curious to know what that buff would be. You'd have to give some buff, because we all know that NPCs tend to, well, it depends on how the NPCs program. Some NPCs are dumber than a bag of rocks, but others actually at least respond and do their little role in a way. And we talked about this, I think, offline before, about games like Star Trek Bridge Crew. And that's a fun game, but it also shows you what it's like to collaborate and talk with different people. Did you get your part done? Did you do this over here? And so as we're an NPC, there's probably going to be less delay there. So I would hope they give a buff to in real life players.
I watched some YouTube footage of Star Trek Bridge Crew, and it gets pretty intense at sometimes, but it's kind of funny to watch too, because you see people show up and their personalities show up, and you see the hotheads, you see the people who are cool, and you see the frantic people as well. It's kind of funny to watch.
Yeah.
We learned some other things also from the Twitter space. Specifically, Chipto is a fountain of information. I'm so glad we're going to have him on. But he shared that there's going to be 4 to 5 ships made by the Punjabs, and maybe Fancy, if you could, Punjabs, sorry, not Punjabs. If you could bring up the picture of there you go. And I think it's those little, cat-looking creatures with the braids, or is it the mouse-looking creatures next to him? Which one is the Punjab?
Which raises an interesting question. if those little guys are the ones who created the ship, why would they be creating it tall? So are there going to be ships that you can't even fit in unless you're one of those little guys?
That's why they're $15. No, I don't. I don't know. I mean, I think that was explained that their ships are open and airy. But I think it's a great point, and it goes for the Tufa as well, right? They're living ships, so how are they gonna have a crew?
They're going to have to load you in the cargo bay.
Oh,
My pack light crew is going to have to be stapled to the outside of a Punab ship at this rate, the way they eat. So, but I think it's kind of cool. We're going to start seeing ships that we don't really, that we haven't seen yet, right? But they're going to be from the manufacturers that we know. So, who makes Punab ships? That's what I would love to know.
And have we seen, how come no leaks or, stuff from designers have shown up? Because we saw some of those even before most of the ships we're familiar with, before they were actually shown. We at least saw some of the artwork. I'm curious, has anyone looked? Is there any stuff? Or are they just getting better at keeping it, tight-lipped?
Well, I mean, that's a gold mine for content creators, right? The finding those ArtStation pictures. But I think that's a great point, Jesse. I think we have not seen anything other than the standards that we've been seeing so far. And if they're acknowledging there's 4 to 5 ships, they have to be out there somewhere. Let me see. Oh, so Ogrika are Punab ships.
Huh.
I was not aware of that. And those are sizable, right?
well, yeah.
But yeah, we could see it, like how big they are going to be in game from this thing they also dropped. It was a GIF, but it was too big to upload in whole.
Oh, you couldn't get the whole video?
Yeah, it was the file size.
Okay. All right. Well, it's really interesting. I love that they're doing this because it shows the attention to detail that they're picking different sizes. Although he's going to have to really jump up on that bench there. What's a Punab, meta home look like? And can a Ooster come and visit him?
Yeah, and I also took this screenshot. It's really cool because you can recognize where the showroom starts. You can see like the Visas banners at the top there, and the guardrails, and fits in quite perfectly to here. There's the palm trees out in the background. So yeah, they have the space, and they're just gonna continuously show us little bits of it until it's ready. Looking forward to getting these models textured.
What do you think's up in the sky out there?
Kind of look like the larger version of the Ohms, large cheese wedges floating out there.
I was thinking the same thing, that maybe it's some sort of ohm ship, or it could be clipping from the visual radius. But my hope is that it's some sort of ship. I think that'd be cool.
I still want to know, if you get 8 ohms, can you connect them all to make a whole wheel?
Just get travel the speed of light.
Why not? Some other things we learned, which I absolutely love this. I think it's going to make some people angry, but blueprints are one-time use and not tradable.
I love it. I love it. That was one thing that I was interested in knowing more about, but it just never really came to mind with all the other information and other NFT projects I'm involved in. But I thought it was a fantastic idea because now it's a one of one. You can't share it with people, and you earned it, and then you could profit off of and know more or less that no one else is just going to be able to, unless they find one themselves, which requires you putting in work and time into playing the game. So
when you first shared that, my thought was well, that's strange. In the real world, if we see a blueprint, you can, of a house, or of a car, you could build endless cars from that. But as we translate it to the game world, if I'm the blueprint maker and I sell a blueprint, that would, I love that idea that I can sell now a blueprint for someone to make something. And now that blueprint becomes an NFT, and that NFT is good for one of that thing. Now, my other question is, can you fail in the build?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the reason I love it being not tradable is it really provides value to the people who have put in the time to get their skill levels up. And then, the people who have designated themselves as shipbuilding guilds really have a level of value because not everyone's going to spend the time to do that. And they are going to have the exclusive on it. So I do get where you're coming from, though, because as a scientist or whatever the career field is, if you get to that level, it'd be nice to trade it, but why not build it and sell it instead? That's how I look at it.
But that's an interesting thing, though. So let's say that you do acquire a blueprint. Does that mean that now you have to go and build the manufacturing facility to do all of that for a single blueprint? And then you have to go back to the blueprint maker again for each ship that you want to make? So is the ship designer AEP? Are they going to have to do that? Or are they going to have someone that just works in the blueprint department and is taking these blueprints and saying, all right, here, go and mint all of these in the manufacturing process?
I see it as once you get to a certain level of loyalty within a shipbuilder, you can buy a blueprint. And when you buy it, you have to use it. You can't trade it or sell it. That's how I see it. I could be wrong, but I don't think it's blueprints or something you fabricate. I think it's something you buy.
With reputation, yeah.
Oh, is that accurate, Fancy?
Yeah, that's how you get blueprints, I believe. There could be other options, but like one of the other things he mentioned on the town hall is that they updated the way dual factions will work since they released that article, and basically with the major and minor dual factions, the major half will mean you get all of the blueprints for that faction, and the minor means you'll get some of them, so you can earn, but it will be capped at a certain point. You can't go the entire way in.
That's pretty big. That actually is way different than I expected. So what you're saying from this visual here is that Pierce can get the full, or Mud can get the full, all the Calico blueprints, but Busan can only get, or Oni can only get a portion of the Calico blueprints. Is that what you're saying?
They both earn reputation at the same rate, more or less, pretty much. But when you get to a certain point, you wouldn't be able to go past it. I'm not sure what that point is, and I don't know. Would it be like the medium range? Would you be able to make a Calico evac if you was a minor, or would that be too far? Interesting questions.
So maybe I'm misunderstanding about it.
Your mic went out for a second.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe I misunderstood. So it's not that you have a blueprint and that blueprint actually produces a single craft. That means that you as a manufacturing facility can absorb that blueprint, and then from that point on, you are able to make that craft, but only at that facility.
It might
I don't
be,
know.
I think it'll be more like account bound, really. Like if you just have the knowledge to do something, you can do it over and over again.
So the person that pushes go on the manufacturing process needs to have that blueprint in their wallet.
It's one of them things that is kind of liable to change. It's just how they're thinking about it now. And also, one other thing was faction pass is now means you unlock whatever the faction has access to. And he specifically said they won't be cheap.
Interesting.
Wow.
But
Good
not
for us.
overpowered either.
Very good for us Rebirth poster holders, right? Because I think you got a faction pass with each poster set, or I think I have 4 of them.
Yeah, so you'd be able to get all of the Vusus, Pierce, like you'd be able to go the entire way in to the tech tree, basically.
Oh, so it bypasses the minor loyalty requirements, is what you're saying?
Well, minor and major are only for Ogrica, Calico, and Opal. So Busan has Ogrica, Visus has Opal, and Pierce has Calico as their majors.
Yeah.
So, but they also have a minor as well. So it's all very interesting.
Very interesting. So, I like the fact there's only 3 factions and I have 4 passes. So that means, and they're not going to be cheap. That means I get to sell one, which is awesome.
Yeah, I do like how he said they're not going to be overpowered, though, because you're still going to have to go in and do and earn that reputation.
Yeah,
otherwise
that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay.
So with all of this and fancy, I'm at a disadvantage because I didn't listen to the whole Twitter space.
Yeah, it was a long one.
Was there a timeline given for Cream?
Well, that was given during the town hall, I believe. It's they're looking for around the middle of the year for mining, extraction, crafting, materials, and space exploration. And they have separate teams working on all of them.
So we go. If I understood this correctly, we go from Score version 0, which we're at now, to Score version 1, as well as Cream 0 within the first half of the year. So Q1 and Q2 is kind of what the mark is for that. Does that sound accurate?
Yeah, bisected by the Polis DAO. So yeah, it looks like every quarter we have something.
Yeah, and also the showroom as well. Whenever that drops. Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Showroom is going to do a lot for ship sales. I mean, that is if we actually have. I mean, at what point will we see enough ships to where you're going to want to casually go through a showroom and go, and you're swiping through and you're like, I think I want this one, because up to this point it's been like go, buy. So yeah, when is that going to change? Which brings up two questions about future ship sales. One, do we think that based on how ship sales have gone to this point, 175 million in ships and almost 100% of them staked, to now we have 51 ships coming in 2022. And of those ships, 3 of them are Titans. Do we think that now, based off past history, and especially, I mean, this is the model that we see other companies, I'm not going to mention names, Gala, out there doing this, but where they actually raise the price and raise the actual amount that are available so they can make more money. Do we think that the price of the ships released here this year are going to be priced similar in class to the existing ships that have already been released? And will the mint quantities be similar to what we've already seen, or will they scale and be something different?
This is where
what I would expect is, since all these ships sold out so quickly, that the quantities would raise, certainly.
I think this is where they back themselves into a corner. If they raise the starting price for a lot of similarly class ships that they've already sold, people are going to either expect more for their money, or the people who have a lower VWAP and get less emissions are going to complain. So that it's not going to be an easy thing for them to do unless they do it just like they did.
Yeah, and if they release it while the market's in a dip, then there may be other ships released in the past that are below VWAP at that time. And who's going to buy a new ship if there's a on sale one with a better ROI?
I think there's argument for both. I mean, I'm thinking that if I was Star Atlas, if I'm the game developer, I'm thinking in terms of, well, we released the first set of ships based on the size and scale of our community at that time. We have a larger community now, and if we do the exact same thing, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be upset, like when we see, some of these ridiculous NFT mints where it's like you didn't even get to push go and everything's gone. Mm-hmm. So that creates a lot of disappointment as well. So do you scale the size of mint? And one of the reasons I'm partially okay with that is because that means for those of us that got this first generation, these Genesis ships, which these will still be in that category, I guess, but that means that the ships that we already have are more scarce because we're around for that first cycle. So I see value in potentially making them a little bit larger, 10% more in mint, maybe, I don't know. I see some value in doing that because that way it expands it. Because I would like to see a point in time where I could go through the showroom and be like, what exactly do I want? Oh, look at this one. Swipe. Oh, this is cool. Oh, and I can have this component in this module. That would be a cool experience. If everything is a rush to the market, it kind of eliminates that whole showroom experience of what you want to buy.
Well, we have to consider the depressive effect of new ships coming to the market as well, right? People are going to sell what they have to buy other stuff because they think it looks cooler or it fits their play style more. The people who bought 200 X4s and don't have any additional capital are going to sell 100 X4s to buy the next ship that they want to get. So I think that's going to create some price pressure on the Gen 1 ships.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just being able to go inside the ship and look around the ship itself is definitely going to help solidify the purchases in a lot of people's minds who are on the sidelines.
Without getting into details, have you seen some of the Foundation interiors that have been
Uh,
shared?
not yet. It's been a busy
Oh.
couple of days, but
There is some amazing pictures in there. I won't. Naturally, we can't share them here.
yeah,
But
I'll go right
they're
now.
really doing a great job with the OPOD interiors that they've been showing.
You guys remember a while back where we saw some, I don't know if it was a Foundation Room leak or if it was just art somewhere that someone was showing, but it was a single seater. So it would have been an extra small. And it looked like you laid on it, you rode it in a particular strange way. But I seem to recall a bike of some sort that was leaked, but it never seemed to make it to market. I wonder if that is going to be this first extra small ship that was mentioned on the town hall that would be coming out for $15 here within the next week or so.
Could be.
Yeah,
Possibly.
that's going to be revealed on Tuesday, and it's going to go on sale on the 3rd of February. That's Thursday. Entry level, extra small. So I'm not sure if it's Thimble Lobby, because this looks like a two-seater to me, and most of the two-seaters are priced three figures plus at
I
least.
think that's going to be like a jet.
Yeah, like $300. Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure what's coming to the market. It could be a Busan. We haven't seen any of them yet.
Yeah.
And just to provide proof to what I was saying earlier, I would sell my jet for that car in a heartbeat, right? Because it jives with how
That's
I
cool.
hope to show up.
It is cool for sure. So on the Busan, do you have Fancy? You're able to pull up that sheet that Banjo created that shows the different faction ships.
Yes.
So the Busan is like the Busan is the first major manufacturer within the three factions that's on the Oni side that really has not had any ship representation yet. So you think there's a good chance that over the next few ships there'll be strong Busan the way that Pierce has already shown up?
Yeah, I
Yes.
imagine by the time crafting is out, everything's going to be a bit more level.
Mhm.
And if it isn't, then they're going to try and fill that gap with like things we can make.
Yeah, makes sense.
And I think they planned for last the best ships to release. I think they're going to look pretty damn sweet.
Yeah. Well, we've seen a lot of Pierces.
You can just look at ArtStation for other projects and see the potential of what's coming. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of Star Citizen artists working on Star Atlas, and you can kind of see what they've done, and kind of get a sense of where their direction might go.
Sounds like
Now-
you need that ZZ Top beard for that thimble, huh?
Now, I swear I saw something. Okay, so it is official. I'm going to bring it up on the screen. There was another thing brought up on Twitter that really made me jazzed. Let me just get ready for it here. It was a picture of kind of an Opal jet, right? And a guy getting out of the Opal jet, and kind of the response of the vehicle as he jumps out is just really cool.
Yeah,
I love that.
That is cool. Yeah.
I
like
do
a
wish
little-
they put
Like
it
a
in
little
higher resolution.
gravitational bounce on it.
Yeah. Fancy, what'd you say?
I do wish they put it in higher resolution. I got it stretched out on full screen.
Oh, you do?
here.
Okay. There you
Yeah.
go. Well, the other thing that shows is a different perspective on the Opal jet. Like, it's wider than I thought it was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah, it seems like it's got a little bit more meat to it. I was expecting to be much leaner than that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Same.
But I mean, this is probably the type of thing you fly into the showroom, maybe with your Opal jet, and you jump out and it has this response, or maybe a pilot jumps out. I love that they're putting more than just simple, like, okay, guy gets out of the ship and the ship stays static. Gives it some life.
And they did that too also when we watched the before we even knew, it was someone piloting the OPOD into the hangar, how, it had a little bit of its correction, kind of adjusting as it was kind of lowering to come into the hangar space.
Well, going back full circle to the game that we're playing to practice for Star Atlas, landing is not an easy thing to do. So I hope they have some sort of auto dock function that allows me to click a button and get brought in, because I'd prefer not to pay the credits repairing my ship or repairing a space station.
I mean, if we got cars that can parallel park themselves now, I would think in the future we can like push a button for a ship to park itself.
You'd think, you'd hope. All right. Fancy, what else we got with Star Atlas?
So one of the interesting things about the roadmap was how it phrased ship summoning on all landing pads operational. That's landing pads with an S. So I'm trying to like figure out how big this showroom is going to be, and how many landing pads there will be. Will there be one for like each class? Because one won't fit for an extra small that will fit a tree arrow, for example.
So do you get the idea? You pick a ship, and it flies in, and that's kind of the summoning, as it flies in from the hangar door.
Well, that's what I think of with like just how it's phrased. Yeah, I think you have to own the ship. Well, that would make sense. It'd be cool if you could buy straight from the showroom, like we mentioned. I think that
Maybe it's like a parking garage. You know, you go up to a pad that's large enough for the ship size you have. I mean, if it's something capital, you're probably going to go up to the top floor open area, and like valet, you like swipe, push it button here for this particular ship, and it eventually comes to the pad. I mean, that would be my guess how you might do it.
Yeah, and throwback to this is the X6 looking good.
Sexy.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing that one. And if we think the Opal is big, it would be good to actually get perspective on how huge these things are.
Well, that has a brig inside of it, if I recall, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a sizable ship. Fancy, can you go back to the roadmap that you had there? There was something I wanted to talk about. So one of the things they talked about on the town hall, and I didn't quite understand what they were implying, and maybe some of you have a different perspective, but they talked about the wallet having integration with Unreal Engine.
Yep.
Did you guys hear that? And what did you think they meant? I didn't quite understand it.
So I think that integration means, like as Fancy was just saying, that you have to have that ship in your wallet to be able to pull it up. So if you're going into the showroom, the integration is to your wallet so that you can pull up a ship that you own to be able to have it show up on the pad. That's what my takeaway was.
That makes sense. I didn't know if it was something that you were purchasing out of the showroom with your wallet, or if it was more about showing what you have.
Oh, maybe that's the other thing. You do go in the showroom, and if it's something you don't already have, you can, because your wallet is connected, you can make the purchase from the showroom.
Mm-hmm. So somebody, I think in relation to the X6, someone said it's very cheap right now.
It is. It's one of the better buys against VWAP for earnings right now.
Very good.
Last I checked, it was like 15%, I think.
X6 is at $684 right now. I'm not sure what the VWAP was on it. Maybe
it's 18% actually. The ask over versus VWAP, 18.82.
Wow. So VWAP is 930 for that, huh? And it's already down to
755. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's great. Oh, maybe I need to refresh my screen here. I still don't know. Is there data on the club's screen that is not accurate? Is that what's going on, or does it just not update?
You know what?
I
was using AAP, so I don't know whose is more accurate.
Got it. Well, it looks like the ship everyone loves to not like or buy, the BIOS or BYOS ERP, is the one that's still giving the best returns. It's also on a discount right now.
Well, that's a funny ship to me. It's kind of like a ship that it's nostalgia. You gotta really like it to say that's the ship for me, because it doesn't necessarily lend towards it. You're not going around fighting in it. It looks like it was glued together, which still does have some appeal. It's duct tape. But yeah, for whatever reason, that if people were in the mode of, hey, I want to buy a ship that's going to be the ship that represents me best for gameplay, for whatever reason at the moment, that one seems to be lagging behind, I guess. Yeah.
Well, if anyone's watching the the Book of Boba on Disney. The Mandalorian gets a new ship and they show, or maybe Mandalorian gets a new ship and they talk about how they're going to build it. And it starts out looking like an ERP, but at the end, maybe you can upgrade it and make it look sexier, right?
Is that show worth watching? I tend to I've been saving it to binge if it's worthwhile, but is it, you enjoying
I'm
it?
a Star Wars nerd. I think all the stuff they're doing now is really good. Mandalorian's good. I think Book of Boba's good. There's people who are diehard fans who find all the things wrong with it that didn't fit their perfect idea of what it was supposed to look like. But
Yeah.
I think they're doing a good job. Anybody else been watching?
Yeah, I don't need that. I don't need the complete lore model to have entertainment value. Just as long as it's well written and it's got some of the good Star Wars lore that comes with it, I'm happy.
Well, I think what's cool about it is they're giving a lot of Easter eggs. Like there was a part for this ship they needed that they sourced from Jawas on the last episode, and it's the same part that either Han Solo or Luke Skywalker used to keep the trash compactor from closing in on them. So now that has an actual name.
That's cool.
They are doing a good job there. And Disney is loosening up on some of its nonviolent stuff. But if you want a really good history of the Tusken Raiders, Boba is the way to go. They're doing a great job with the storytelling, in my opinion.
It's good to hear.
I've been given the answer. It was Han. There we go. It was Han. He shot first. What else we got, Fancy?
So yeah, we talked about the 51 different models, but we didn't mention how that is twice as many as was mentioned last time. So that's pretty much one for each week of the year coming up.
And they did say that the release schedule is going to be more consistent, so that should be pretty much boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, all scheduled 1 or 2 weeks. There's going to be 3 Titans across all different sizes / roles. And one interesting thing from the Twitter space was how Chipto mentioned that it is like the 3 Titans. So one's it's the Tree Arrow, and that's Ecos. And then there's the, what is it?
Busan, Last Stand.
Yeah, the Busan and then the Pierce, I believe. So that's not like 3 factional Titans like we imagine. That's one from one of like the outer territories instead of one for all of the Council of Peace ones.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
One of the things that I hope comes of this DAO, once it's out, and actually they now have the ability to exercise some governance and vote for, gameplay as a whole, would be things like this, the Titan. I wish that had waited for about, hey, DAO, people that are influencing the gameplay along with us here, or what the future of the game will be. How do you feel about the release of when should we sell the Titan ships?
Yeah. Well, I think there's obviously they have a timeline they're working on. I mean, in respect to the fact that there are a lot of moving different pieces, but these are big things that do impact the perception of the community, right? And just like Gala, there's going to be people who are fanboys and will never allow themselves to think critically about some of the things that they're seeing. We're going to see that in Star Atlas as well. And then there's going to be a group of people who, like us, who see things and go, that seems a little bit off. Yeah. But again, I trust the Star Atlas dev team way more than I trust Gala. So,
and maybe no one's asked it yet. I think I'll reach out and ask that in the foundation room. And my question would be along these lines: is like, what is the perceived value to Gala? Perceived value to Star Atlas long term, and also to gameplay of bringing the Titans in now as opposed to waiting, because I don't really think it's the 15 million that they may raise from it, because they could blow through that and just baseline ships even at the capital level. So I don't think that is a problem. They can get the money. So what is else when they were in the in the room saying, hey, look, we need this for this reason, and here's what we think it's going to do to the overall gameplay of the different factions. And I don't think anyone's asked that. At least I haven't seen an answer to it, but I'm curious where they see Titans falling into things.
One of the things that they kind of gave a clue that was coming is there was a lore project underway that had, I guess, its fingers in game and out of game, and maybe they're going to fold these Titans in the auction into some sort of lore release. Maybe it's a storytelling device that will go in conjunction. I hope that's the case, and it's not just, oh, we sold it and then it's going to pop into the game. It seems like we already know Busan Last Stand has some lore behind it. I would love to hear the lore behind the others and have them introduce it into our ecosystem, if you will, from a lore perspective.
I mean, like, what if it was faction-wide project? Because rather than even just a guild, let's say, because they're going to have 3 of them. So in the Oni faction, maybe that becomes a reason for the Oni collective and for all of the different people within Oni, the different guilds, the different polis influencers, to come together and say, look, we have this last stand. How and when should we activate it and use it, to protect Oni as a faction? Rather than it just be one person going around the big swinging dick saying, hey, here's how I'm going to use it. Here's what I'm going to do with it. It just seems like there's just so much more that you could use it for to solidify factions, rather than just have one person or group own it.
Well, there is an opportunity for them to be the ships that move the boundaries, so to speak. So we talked last week about, factions and moving boundaries at the medium risk zone. Maybe it's a Busan that goes into a new system in the mud system and helps take it over. Maybe you need that level of firepower to do it. So far, that's the only thing I can see where it would have immediate value other than, like you said, dragging your big, brass balls over the metaverse.
You raise another interesting question about that. So let's say that one faction has their big Titan and another faction doesn't. No one in the other faction even bought a Titan yet. Or can one faction end up somehow owning all 3 Titans? And so if that was the case, because it's down to the buyer rather than faction specific, so that, you end up with 3 freaking Titans in one faction, which would be horrible. Could you amass a fleet of capital and commander ships, and how many would that take to actually even be able to engage and take down a Titan ship?
That's a great question for Chipto. Will Titans be faction locked? I think by necessity they almost need to be. Otherwise, one faction becomes absolutely dominating.
Yeah, I agree with that, Ultra. Last Stand should be used that way. It should be a faction vote. Yep. So I think it becomes one of those big things that brings a faction together. You may have differences within your faction, but you also have something that brings you all together. And I think a Titan ship could be that thing.
Well, and this goes back to the intrigue of faction leadership, right? Can a faction influence the way a Titan ship that somebody has spent money on, can they impact or influence how it's used? Because then by nature, they're putting themselves under a kind of a proxy government, right? Yeah. Or can they act against the wishes of the faction down? These are the things that are going to be awesome to see how they play out.
Let's say you have no polis, but you have a Titan. You still have a vote.
You have a big vote. Yeah. Vote with your weapons. That's usually how that works. And it again, right back to human nature.
Right. Come on out into deep space. Let's talk about it.
Just you got to find me first.
I won't hurt you.
All right. What else would you guys like to see from that lore project? I mean, there's so much they can do with it. What do you think would be fun?
I think. Go ahead, Fancy.
Yeah, there is a lot of things they could do with it. It might just be a case of having lore that is like instructions for what the next stage is going to do. We've seen some of that in the past. Would be cool to understand more of the Titans, though. I agree.
Yeah, I would love. I think a lot of people put a lot of time. Those of us who come from MMO backgrounds love the idea of knowing where we came from and having a backstory. I think anything that gives us more about being able to identify who we are as a person, if you will, in the metaverse, I mean, we bring our own personalities to it, but there's also the lore piece behind it. And it may cause, I'm not even 100% sold on what race I'm going to play yet. It may change my mind on which one I'm going to play.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the, as you mentioned with MMOs, one of the exciting things about that is when you first start off, when you're going through even the tutorials and learning the ropes of gameplay, generally you're in a small corner of the world where your people came from. And so it's not later to you go to a big city to where all of a sudden you're seeing a lot other races. And so that is kind of a cool lore and gameplay loop to be able to go and visit a planet somewhere within Star Atlas where, or a sector somewhere where your people came from, to just see what the culture, the technology, you know, the food, the buildings, what it all looks like that is unique to that race.
I think that's another question. And you know, they already have I'm going to call it an encyclopedia, you know, with the dev team that they're working off of. And I think Chipto shared in a previous town hall that he had been exposed to it. I'd love to know how robust it is and what his thoughts are on it when we talk to him.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
What, anything else for Star Atlas, Fancy?
Well, last thing from town hall was Chipto mentioning how they're going to need some time to reshuffle the scope of the roadmap. Like different gameplay loops are going to be brought forward or pushed back depending on what we want. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see when they do get that roadmap shuffled, so we can see, like, visualize what they plan to do.
Well, you know, Wagner made a point of saying that they're not putting dates on anything anymore. And I understand why. I hope they don't go completely gala on us in that regard. But the roadmap does keep at least the inquiring community on track with what they're working on, because they run the risk of allowing things to go too long. But it feels like even without set timelines, we have a good understanding of what's coming.
Right. And yeah, and I can appreciate pushbacks. I mean, it's a natural part of the development cycle. You have an idea of when you want to have something complete and released, and then you run into a couple of unknowns. And I also like the standard to which they want to hold themselves to for the quality of a finished product that they want to put out. So,
yeah. You know, one of the things they also said in the town hall, which I thought was ambitious, and I saw it as a goal that has some problems attached to it, is they want a million players by the end of this year. And as soon as they said that, I said, well, there goes emissions. I mean, think about anybody who's in a DeFi space where you're staking into a DeFi platform. The more people come in, the less you get, because you got more people to spread it around to.
So yeah, which leads back to my original inquiry concern is like, if you know all of a sudden you've sold 175 million in chips, and so you're making adjustments for that, which is fine. You do better than you anticipated, that's fine. But you should also be looking how you can pull a couple of levers and make adjustments to the emissions so that you're staying within the model. And so how are they going to do that if they have a million people? Does the existing, that's a great question. Does the existing rewards and emissions model accommodate a million people in 2022? Because if not, then something needs to change and be adjusted.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, at some point, the value, what happens when the value gets so high that's brought in, like total locked value gets so high that it completely eclipses the emissions? Then it goes into a polis vote of how much we're going to allow into the system every year. And this is where we're going to need people who are very in tune with the economics, even outside of the dev team, helping explain to people about the impacts of certain polis votes. Mm-hmm. Even emission rates, if we're allowed to increase emissions through polis vote, that, popular vote could really kill that system, right?
Yeah.
Because if you have people who see short-term gain and not long-term health of an ecosystem, and they have the weight in the voting, we're screwed.
Yeah, which is why I can understand the dev team wanting to retain some of that controlling interest until such a time that they feel like the model that they have envisioned has had a chance to kind of mature before saying, all right, now you guys can vote something else. There was a question up there from Darius. As far as for sale, I believe the Titan ships are going to be up to 5,000 meters, which is a large ship. But beyond that, at some point, there's been talk of motherships, which can be considerably larger. So,
yeah, if I recall correctly, motherships were kind of a faction event, right? Just like the Dyson spheres might be a faction event.
Yeah.
But there's not been any concept art that I've seen, and there's not been much talked about other than someday soon or someday down the line.
I heard something once on a show, and I forget who it was, but something along the lines of a mothership could be essentially the size of the U.S.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Wow.
insane.
That's a Borg.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that kind of we discussed privately and I brought it up on Twitter is the idea of hiding leaks behind retweets. And that's something that we've seen Gala do constantly, not only on their Discord, but also on Twitter. And it's the first time we've seen it show up in Star Atlas. And I've got to be honest with you, every once in a while it's okay. But if it becomes the regular way you get leaks, it's just a pain in the ass and it's annoying.
You know what? As someone that's that has taught social media for quite a few years, I don't think it's not intentional. It's just when a company is trying to utilize social, but they make a couple of cultural faux pas in the process, and it just doesn't come across the way that they truly intended it. I don't think they meant for it to go the way that it did.
Yeah, because
go ahead, Ray.
No, I was just going to share for every influencer or YouTuber or any company, you want to get your name out there. You want to, get a lot of support or enthusiasm around a particular post. It's all about, the numbers, but also about growing at the same time as a whole, not just as a company. So this is one method that many might not favor, but it works, and you can't knock it for working.
What I'll say is that especially this community, they rapidly share. Like anything that's new, they're sharing. And if they're already doing that, I don't know that you need to put it behind a retweet wall. But Jesse, you've seen some faux pas by them, and considering your experience, and from your perspective, could they do rather to just blow it out of the water as far as getting their game exposed to other people?
To try and make it happen in a more organic fashion, you can ask for a call to action. And if you don't ask, look at all the YouTube channels out there. Why do we say like, subscribe, hit that notification bell? It's because if you do a show identical, but you don't ask for it, people simply won't do it. So for that reason, you do ask people. And so they're kind of going down that model, and probably things that they've been coached on or guided to do. Here, try this, that works in other industries. That's the other thing too, is a lot of times advice that you get doesn't necessarily translate across different communities on different platforms. But they'll get it right. I think the idea overall is just to keep sharing a lot, do the stuff that they do that the community eats up in our close circles, and you're going to find you're going to draw more people outside of that, which I think is really what they're trying to do. They're trying to really test the waters for how quickly they can expand beyond who they already have. What is Twitter up to 300,000 followers right now?
Something like that.
Yeah.
What's interesting is in order to get to 1 million, you almost have to go after the gamers. And the gamers, well, one, you have to create something that gamers want to play, which right now I don't know if fleet missions are really what they want to play. No. And that's not knocking fleet missions. I love them so far. But with the gaming community also comes another type of behavior, and that's the toxicity. And if anyone's ever been around a gaming community, they can be very toxic, and they can completely change the dynamic of a Discord, or even if a development team starts chasing a toxic community and based on their demands, things go south pretty quick.
Yeah, I think that's why Wagner, mentioned multiple times that the game's appealing to a lot of crypto native users, not just because there's money there, but because they understand. and it would prevent something like this. I don't think there's going to be a mass flood of just like legacy gamers coming into Star Atlas, where that scenario would happen. But just yesterday, I was scouring YouTube on the sentiment and narrative outside of what we know in our bubble of Star Atlas on YouTube, and it was pretty negative. Like, there's not much of anything positive or in favor, more either neutral, and more so, it's a scam. It's a trending keyword, for what it's worth with Star Atlas, because of the reputations of the games we know as Star Citizen and EVE Online, and even though they're enjoyable in their own right in whatever way, it's just a Star Atlas is just another, but with blockchain on top, and what a lot of people don't understand, which is the blockchain, NFTs, and that portion of Star Atlas is what differentiates it completely, in many ways, that I think than a EVE Online or Star Citizen, and it's just negative. The comments are terrible.
Yeah.
Like, I'm never gonna touch it. Like, some serious hardcore far right on the spectrum of, like, not even an option. I'm gonna stick to my, Star Citizen.
You bring up a really good point, because I've seen that too, and I've even had conversation with friends that are somewhat crypto savvy. They don't know much about the NFT or blockchain gaming space, and they tell me some of the things that they've heard and that they've read, which has kind of led to their thoughts and ideas about what Star Atlas is, until I take the time and say, no, here's what I think, having been involved in the community for a while. Have you read the white paper? Have you read the economic paper? And so that raises a great question. So if you are going to go after crypto folks, they have a certain expectation about how they think news and things should be shared. If you're going to go after the gamers, they have to see gameplay loops and things that make sense to them. Otherwise, it's not a game, and they're going to critique it. So it becomes a funny dance of how you educate people to understand what you are.
Right. And I think what we're doing, and as well as other Star Atlas community members who have, or who give criticism, or even in the foundation room, wherever it is, to keep, because everyone on the team might have their heads in the sand focusing on the game. And, we can be that extension or that bridge from the legacy communities of games that are in the same genre as Star Atlas to then, like, bring them over, in a sense. So, but it's going to be hard for us as builders in the space alongside Star Atlas in support. But if we don't have any of these things that appeal to legacy gamers, like these reveals of gameplay footage, not just loops of one thing in particular, but everyone has been spoiled, I guess, over the years in legacy gaming. So it's never going to be enough, and it isn't even for us enough as native crypto users or crypto Twitter space users. When we see something, it's a quick, okay, well, this other project is doing this, right? So we're always throwing a current project under the bus from what we've got and what we were spoiled with from projects before. So and our money's involved too. So you got so many variables. Not just a developing team is creating a game. You like it or not, doesn't even matter. Subscription-based model, sucks all your money. You play it or you don't play it, right? But it's an interesting thing. And I just this last point on this is just I watched the video, and this guy clearly didn't go any lower than the surface of Star Atlas. He didn't share the Discord, which is where the game and the community basically lives for now. All they did was go on the website, and even on the website, there's probably places on the website you can click that gives you way more information that you never thought you would see, which is the econ paper and the white paper, which this individual who made this YouTube video with hundreds of thousands of views never mentioned. So it's just like, you have all these questions that have answers already for those questions that would make you create and upload a video that's way more in favor of the game, instead of having your follower and your base viewership think that it's a scam because you have that word in the title.
From the blockchain perspective, you're also up against the maxis, right? So it's not on their chain, so obviously it's shit from the beginning. So you got the people who love ETH, and if it's not ETH, it's crap, no matter how good it is. And they're just going to do the bare basics. If it's not, we have some of our own maxis within Rome, but if it's not Bitcoin, then it's not good. And I think you have to break down those walls, because that's the first step of getting somebody. I never even knew what Solana was until Star Atlas. I'll be honest. I had never spent the time looking into it because it just wasn't in my sphere. And so you have to break down that wall before you can start getting people to actually look at the projects from from a blockchain person, a crypto person, gaming's a little bit, you have to show a game. People, like you said, Ray, they're spoiled. They expect Call of Duty. And right now we're not at Call of Duty.
And let me tell you, just the crypto Twitter space is a whole nother universe of what crypto, NFT, gaming, whatever aspect of the blockchain you want to talk about, it lives there on crypto Twitter. If anything, it's like where you should start before getting into any particular Discord for any particular game, because there's going to be way more conversation around the game, and you'll know if it's supported by any bigger companies in the space, followed. You take a follow for what it's worth, but if you have a project being followed by another project and the community members, and then you see the posts, you just get a better understanding having both going into your Discord and then also into the crypto Twitter space with these particular projects.
The thing that excites me most about Star Atlas is the reason that it's probably the hardest to sell at this particular time. So for me, if we look at games that are going to be fun to play, if they can make those games fun to play and make them right away, then they don't have the long tail and the long legs of what Star Atlas is going to be. So it has to start with an economic foundation. You literally have to think on this grand scale of what is this metaverse? What is this Ready Player One thing that can be created that is going to grow so far that we don't even know what it will look like in 10, 15, 20 years. But we're going to seed the metaverse with this model that is open, but it's going to be well thought out. And how do you do that while keeping people's interest all the while? For the people that are the gamers that are eventually going to game and enjoy it, how do you get their attention now to where you can help to fuel the project when there's nothing you can really show them that's going to make sense to them right now? Mm-hmm. And then all the while, you're going to attract the people that do look a few layers below that. But then how do you keep their interest? By giving them a way to earn with the staking of ships and things that they're doing now with these different modules. So if you look at the whole landscape of how they're handling this and how they're being transparent and open, how they've created this economic paper, how they're showing you the infrastructure of it all, how they're giving you the ability to do some earning now, even though people look at that and say that's not a game. That's not the point. That's not the point of it. It is a game in some capacity, but this is a big, big thing being built out. And when I look around the entire rest of the landscape, every other game and every other project out there, I don't see anything that even comes close based on how this is being built out. So for that, that's one of the biggest reasons I support the project. It's the closest thing that meets my personal vision for what I think should be unfolding.
And I think that's a great point, Jess. And I think the other thing for the people who really like to geek out on games and game development, this is like a college course in watching game development from the ground up. Most people get the title, it shows up on their Xbox, they can download it. Here you get to see the whole process of building the game in a collaborative effort with the community, right? And that's not been done, to my recollection, in the normal gaming environment like this. So you get to not only help shape, but you get to watch the journey. And for people who are into game development, what better way to learn?
And I pay attention to a lot of side things. For example, I've got a lot of folks from my past lives that I'm connected with on LinkedIn, that I also share connections with people on the Star Atlas team as I'm watching that project grow. And when I look at it, even just through that lens, what I would be able to describe is a company with a vision that is on fire with that vision, the way that they're growing and the way that they're looking to the future. So nothing about this project, when you look at it through that lens, is a company saying, hey, what can I make today? It's not about today at all. It's about making today good enough to keep people enthused about what we're building long term. And you can see that when you look through it at different angles about how they're building their team and other ways that they're the other effort they're putting into Star Atlas as a whole.
Yeah. Punjab brought up a good point about the chains. And I think I know I crack jokes about porn driving the internet all the time, but it may be gaming that drives some of these blockchains to actually grow and expand and become more robust, because they have to, there's finally utility coming on that's going to challenge their transactions per second and find the things that need to be optimized So far, it seems like that's what's happening with Solana. It seems like NFTs and gaming is really driving Solana to have to improve, which, if you want to be competitive in a space, you have to be improving all the time.
Yep. And as we already know, gaming, even in like the traditional media world of entertainment, it's bigger than both movies and music. So you take that interaction that the world has with gameplay and put that into blockchain, it's going to be an on-ramp in a huge way that makes these projects fly. Make these platforms.
100%. Well, Fancy, is there anything else about Star Atlas, or are we going to move on to some other topics?
I think we covered it all. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, this is going to be a pivot to something that we haven't talked about in a long time. We've been putting it off. We're going to talk a little bit about Gala Games. We've made comments in the past. People who are relatively new to the podcast may not understand our journey with Gala Games. But there is some news that is worth sharing. And I think we'll start off with Jesse's quest for support with Gala. So why don't you give us our story here, Jesse?
So actually, I did have an outcome on that, and I got to. I'll give props where props are due. But so for the longest time, I've had this issue. It's been going on. Okay, so 9 months ago, I think is how long I've had my node, and I had this really messed up issue in the very beginning where when I created my Gala account, I didn't have their private key server was down. So I had this defunct thing that wouldn't allow me to purchase, and it was a mess. And then they said the only way to fix it, you got to get a whole new Gala account. So I did that, and I had to transfer everything at my own expense. But I think that something got tweaked with my node to where I'm not eligible for NFTs. But I could just be a drought. I guess we'll find out some year. But so it took me 6 weeks to be able to get a response, and finally I didn't. So I went in their Gala server and I made some snarky comment to Bitbender. Basically, he was talking about how don't pay attention to this Twitter account that is a fake Gala support ticket system. And I said in actually Gala support, I said, do they respond faster in 6 weeks? But
That's
he
awesome.
did. He actually through DM, he was able to look into some stuff for me. I don't know if I got a valid answer or not, but 6 weeks later, he actually did take care of that for me. But
that's a pretty common complaint on their Discord is the length of time to get some resolution done. And what's interesting is I've never seen a system where you get better response by complaining in the Discord versus following their ticket system.
Squeaky wheel. It shouldn't work that way.
Yeah. Well, and there's been some interesting things going on with nodes. And just to bring people up to speed about nodes, Gala has a node system. They have licenses that you can buy. They started off relatively cheap, I think around $500, maybe around there.
Yeah.
And then every 100 nodes, the price goes up. And it used to go up $100, then it went up to $500, and now I think it goes up $1,000. And the current price of a node is somewhere over $90,000 right now.
And there'll only be 50,000 of them just for.
And there'll be 50,000 total.
Yeah.
There was some talk initially about nodes being transferable as an NFT once they sold them all, but I think Gala is probably the most gun shy company I've ever seen around being sued. Whether it's legitimately gun shy or just overkill, they don't want to put themselves, you can't even bring up the word investment on their Discords or you get, hated on. And our Rome has a history of bringing up the uncomfortable truths on their Discord. And now most of us don't go there that often unless we have to ask a question or find out some information. So that's kind of the backstory behind why we talk down on Gala sometimes. I think there's some IP that we all want to see be successful, like Mirandus.
Yep.
But all of us in our own way have found some way to have a bad interaction with the dev team there for no reason, no good reason.
But the behavior continues to come out just the same, even recently. They continue to behave in ways that makes it easy to critique them.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And that's what we're going to talk about now is, there's a pattern that we're observing with Gala, and that is throw a game up for node vote. And basically how the system works is they say, hey, node holders, you get to vote on this game if we're going to bring it to the node network or not. And here's what you get. And you'll get like 5%, 5 to 8% of the NFTs that are initially shipped on that node. So you get a random chance at a node, and Jesse shared he hasn't gotten any. I've gotten 2 or 3 since March. So they're now people are calling them a bonus when it used to be a feature when you first got your node. But now the Stepford wives over there on their Discord have been badgered into calling it a bonus. Like if you get one, it's special, which is bullshit. But it seems to me like the nodes are all right now just like a fancy emission system for Gala, right? And to Gala's credit, everyone with the node is making pretty good money. I mean, I'm playing with the dealer's money now, right? I've paid it off, and we're getting money with it.
It's about $60 a day right now per node.
Yeah, $60 a day is nothing to shake a stick at, right? Especially for the people who got in relatively cheap. Mm-hmm. But these node votes are bullshit. I mean, and here's why. Actually, I'm going to let Jesse explain it because you did it pre-show why it's so bad. And I agree with you 100%. So why don't you walk us through your perspective on why it doesn't make sense?
Sure. So here's the model of the most recent one. And by the way, now there's something like almost close to 10 games under the Gala umbrella, of which only a single one of them is playable, being Townstar. So we have a node vote. And the node vote is, as Banjo mentioned, do you want to include this game into the Gala network? And for that, node owners are going to get X, Y, Z, which is a silly thing because, like, everyone's going to vote yes on this anyway. But what would be amazing is if everyone voted no, because within 10 days of that, they literally dropped $36 million in NFTs in their store related to this game. So they weren't going to do any of that if the vote was no. They didn't have all of this already cooked up. I mean, it's just that sort of thing, which automatically suggests that really what was the node vote for? You went through the exercise when you already had all of this cooked up. And so when you start looking at the NFTs that are being dropped with each of these games, how long is it before the game becomes playable? Because if you go back in there and look at announcements now from Mirandus, which was the flagship that started this that all brought us together for this. Where's the development in that? Mm-hmm. It's the model is keep releasing a new game, charge 30 to 50 or more $1 million for the NFTs. And some of these are going to fail. Not every one of these games is going to be great. So that's going to be 36 million that a group of people are going to be out for an NFT for a game that didn't work because we're still waiting to see the play to earn side of the model.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a lot of appeasing that goes on with these types of releases of games and how they go about just dealing with the community who I guess recognize it if you've been here for a while, but it's just how it's going to work statistically. Not every game is going to be successful, and with all of the current community members, is each one who has purchased not just to flip it gonna play the game? Like how many people does the ecosystem need for any one of these games or all of them to be successful? The daily active users for any particular game is a great indicator of that because you have the people there who are going to spend time and reinvest it inside that ecosystem. Yeah, pull out some, but the NFTs are, and just with the AMA on the Walking Dead IP, right? With the developers there. It was a great one, but unfortunately, some guy in the comment section said, pump my coins or pump my bags, and he was banned. Like, I guess, for what it's worth, he wasn't saying any particular coin, but he just said pump my bags. But, but it kind of prompted Bitbender to go on and talk about how just because you buy something or an NFT from Gala Games doesn't mean you deserve to get anything from just having it and holding it. And sure, we talk about being spoiled in the actual decentralized part of crypto NFT gaming compared to Gala Games if you're on a spectrum here. And, you usually get rewarded for holding an NFT project, whichever one, name one. That's the whole revolution of what happened with NFTs outside of this art profile pictures. Right now, there's gamification with earned incentives or incentives for these tokens that you earn passively just for holding an item or an NFT in your wallet. So it's kind of like day and night when it comes to my experience outside of Gala and what they're trying to do, which guaranteed will be successful, as we see people just funneling in, buying these assets, whether it's for flipping or for long-term wanting to play the game, which I'm sure one of them or many of them will be great games to play. The genres are successful, right? It's not like they're creating anything particularly new outside of the blockchain that they're trying to create for, these servers running all these games on them. But it's not nothing groundbreaking. Like I said, the deeper you go into any other project, Star Atlas being one of them, which we do compare the pros and cons of with the Gala games, and it's just the more you know and get involved and jumping from different networks and different games and researching the projects, you'll then have a better understanding of where we're coming from as a group. And I'm very thankful for Gala Games and Mirandus, because we wouldn't be the group that we are today, and we wouldn't have Rome and any of you watching and supporting us in your own way if it wasn't for Gala Games and our imaginations getting the best of us to dive into what it was back then. The name of our channel, the Mirandus Gentry, which episodes you can find still on our channel if you go into our playlists. But it's just a different. It's the Wild West of different methods to the madness, to making money, and to front running competition. And
Yeah,
the thing
and
that
I know. Go ahead, Jesse. All right. Sorry, man. And I know that there's some changes coming to their node system, right? Like they put out this big push in December for everybody to upgrade by January because they wanted 24/7 uptime. So a bunch of people put extra money into updating their VPSs and things like that. And they said, we're going to flip the switch at this date. Well, they still haven't done that. So we're now paying more for our VPSs for this node system that we really don't. It's just an emission system. We don't get a vote on shit, and we don't even know what phase 2 is when it's going to come live now. So I mean, it's almost like they're building the ship while they fly. Is the way I get it. And the other thing that they're starting to do now is venues as an earnings. NFT, basically a venue as an NFT that has earnings tied to it. But we haven't seen that show up in a game yet and what it pays out. It just feels like it's a new way of them doing land, which seems pretty strange to me.
The behavior over there that is most alarming to me is a couple things. One, it's hard enough in this space to take one project, one thing, and do it really, really well, and build a community around it and help the community understand what they're a part of. Instead, Gala's pushing 10 trains down the track at the same time. But the part that really kind of triggers so many red flags is that if you release a project and you see how well it does in sales, and that's what you're paying attention to, and then the next project, you increase the quantity and you increase the price. And it's like, oh, did they buy that? Oh, great. All right. You know what the price is going to be next time. And they seem to continue to escalate it. But even when you think that things are at a lock, for example, Mirandus, we don't even know what the hell Mirandus is yet or when it's going to be out. Land deeds, there are supposed to be 1,625 of those, 5 of which were going to be citadels. No more land deeds. Well, now we have a metric shit ton of wharfs and docks and things like that. Those are essentially land deeds, whether they call it one or not. So now they continue to go back on things that impact the value of things that people purchase in the past. There's just so many choices and decisions that they're making that are clearly based on greed as a company. I don't know any other way to shake it.
Yeah, I want to use Ron and not Ron Token, but Ronin, the creators of that blockchain, the side chain of Ethereum, and how a lot of these big companies are creating a Steam-like ecosystem that attract legacy companies to come on board and to get gamified as far as crypto and blockchain is it's related to. So Ronin is going from the approach of not just sales but literally ground up community based type of growth, and I could only say that because I've been involved in Axie, and now with the release of Ron and the Ronin network, it's just longer term. Again, pick your poison. because not that any one of these will just fail tomorrow, but it's going to be what you consider to be more important. If you see a lot of money, just like guilds in Star Atlas, if there's one guild with a lot of money, doesn't necessarily mean anything. If there's a lot of members, there could always be figures that are fudged or won't mean the same thing after the fact. So with big companies like Gala Games, they seem to have wanted to start that Steam-like ecosystem sooner than anyone else. Although it might have been in the roadmap for other companies, it's just the approach of marketing and the way they go about it is just not favorable in my opinion.
Well, I want to add to the node vote thing because I think there's one part we didn't share. The question has been asked on their Discord, what happens if we vote no? And then Bitbender's response is, well, we'll just host the game without the nodes. So basically what they're saying is they're going to host the games anyway, whether you vote for them or not. But if you don't vote yes, you won't get your little 6 to 8% chance of getting an NFT drop. So that's why I say the nodes are it's kind of a sham. I mean, it's paid itself off, but it was presented as this decentralized, you're going to have power over the network and be able to help shape the direction of Gala Chain. That's not the case so far.
With what Ray was saying about trying to build that Valve or Steam model where they become, and that I think that was their play all along. They just used Mirandus as a cap raise to be able to create the money to then now have something to demonstrate to these game developers and say, partner with us, look what we've done. We're going to help you do the same thing. And if that was their model, and you know what, it's free enterprise, they can do where the heck they want. But if that's the case, then find a consistent way to release this stuff without continuing to scale. This last one they released, you don't need $36 million to develop that as a card game. You just don't. So it's about making money, and a lot of money there, and putting your community at risk because not all those games are going to win. You've just got in the habit of finding a bunch of people that are just going to buy anything and everything that you sell. And I don't think it serves. Their whole flag all along was giving gaming back to the gamers, and it just, more I see, it just occurs to me that it's fleeced the gamers.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting? Sorry, Banjo. I remembered what I was going to say earlier. So you appeal to a company that wants like a big API, The Walking Dead. So you got The Walking Dead on board now. Are you providing all of the engineers and developers and economists to help you build that game, or are they on their own? Needing to hire out, because if Gala themselves don't even have enough for Mirandus to be developed, is it all on McCarthy's shoulders? Like, where is this money going? And who, as we know, Jane, who was a previous employee there, left soon after. There might be inner workings, and it's not that Gala Games is going to supply all the resources you need to be successful. Even if it's a big brand name, the money is there. There's no denying that the money cannot fulfill any of these goals of being accomplished. But if you're gonna blanket and market yourselves as community, ground-based, or DeFi, crypto, all natural, organic, you could slide with all natural, but you're not organic, right? Just like I always use that example of the FDA. You could slap all natural on anything, but it might be genetically modified, or it might have some not okay ingredients in there that you didn't want, but you didn't know any better. So now you're coming into a Gala's ecosystem as a company or an individual, and you'll soon learn, if you go down deeper than just chiming in once a week, you'll learn that it's not what real DeFi gaming is supposed to be. NFT gaming, not supposed to be, but what there's a different side of the hill that is completely not exactly what you're learning up front if this is your first time getting into the space.
My guess is that they aren't doing any of the engineering. They're not. All they are is they're the NFT marketing partner.
Yeah, exactly. How are you going to build a game out if you're just getting people on board? It's making you more popular, but you're not supplying. Like, for example, Star Atlas and even Axie Infinity. You said earlier, Jess, how you need to focus solely 110%, all resources, all energy to get a game out to be successful. You need hundreds of employees from different types of skills, and where are those people for all of these different games that are coming onto that Steam-like environment in Gala Games? You're going to be waiting forever. And it's not that because I'm waiting, I want something in return. It should just be done out of consideration because of what the space actually is and what's been happening on the other side of the hill, which you just started getting involved in, maybe with Gala Games. But it's just like it's what keeps the community excited. It's what keeps, like, there's so much to learn. And I always ask the question in a previous episodes when we were live: is there anyone they hired to scour the crypto space and learn what's actually working in different communities that are actually DeFi, not just centralized gaming? Because this is technically it's all pretty much centralized in more aspects than others when it comes to these games this early on. But the governance tokens and the ability to control the game over 10 years, or give it 20 years, but at some point, the people who own those tokens via proposals will vote on how they want to see the game come into, or unfold or change over time. How does that happen with the Gala Games? I don't see that. I don't know.
But it almost feels to me like we know that they're a good marketing machine, and they tap into the right things. They tapped into what was the organization they tapped into for players to come play for free? Well, the 888 is a group that's building on the Songbird blockchain or Flare blockchain, but there was the starting points, like the little houses where people were going to start and they were going to donate to this charity.
Yeah. That just kind of fizzled out.
Yeah, where did that go? I just remember that.
So
what do
they
call?
Have these. Yeah, well, and here's another one. So I'm going to.
They're doing it with Opera, the browser company. They're doing it with
Exactly.
Opera.
We've heard nothing since then. Kind of like Mirandus. We haven't heard about Mirandus since Materium,
Wow.
and nobody has Materium yet. But one of the things that we did our vote on was a game called Betwixt, which I was like, okay, what mental health is kind of what people talk about these days, and it's a game that's built to support people's mental health, and they're funding this game through some sort of Gala Games Foundation. So apparently it doesn't hurt the node holders or NFT holders. But I actually went and looked at this game on the App Store. It's a text-based MUD, multi-user dungeon, right? That has no graphics. And the idea behind this is it builds sorry, I'm scrolling through here to see if they have the picture of it. Doesn't look like they do, but anyway, it builds this customized NFT based on your decisions, right? And one, I don't know how they're going to monetize this and make it play to earn, but two, the development is very seriously worse than Mirandus as far as where it's at in its development cycle, and two, they're building an NFT based off a game of your personal mental health. Who wants that out there in the world, right? Who wants to play a game that says, here's all my fucking mental issues, and now it's on the blockchain, right?
And I got an NFT for each one of them.
Yeah.
Got my narcissism right here and this NFT. Yeah.
I mean, so it doesn't make any sense to me. I think this is one of those marketing things that they did to kind of attract the crowd that's into mental health right now, the people who love the Headspace app and stuff like that. And maybe there's a good way to do that, but having an NFT that's based off of your decisions in game, good or bad, doesn't sound like something I would want out there.
Well, you brought up a very good point, and that is that you don't see how it translates to play to earn. We don't know how anything happening over there translates to play to earn, with the exception of Townstar. And we continue to, and Gala Power, yeah. We haven't really seen anything in the camp beyond Townstar. So if you're starting to stretch your portfolio to 10 games, you've got everything from a first-person shooter to a 4X game to card game, all these different, and Fortress, tower defense. So you've got all of these different varieties of genres within gaming, including, the MMO and Mirandus. So you got like 5-6 different genres in gaming now, but we still don't have any idea how it's going to be play to earn. And we know we all left that camp, from at least the conversation side of it, because anytime we asked to try and gain any clarity around it, we were obviously made to feel like, hey, you shouldn't be asking these questions. What do you mean utility? You get a deed and you get to live there and camp out. That's it.
Yeah.
That's the utility.
You're investing in the ecosystem. It's not you're participating in the ecosystem. It's not an investment. I mean, it's the same old, same old. And the good news is there's people fighting the fight over there now that we've left. And every once in a while I jump in and ask a question that gets them riled up. And then I always say within 4 hours, a green name is going to check in and try to calm this down. And sure as shit, it always happens. Like they come in with their, hey, let's look at babies, and hey, let's, all their usual antics. Yeah, the plane, exactly.
So, that's if you're going to sell me a $500,000 NFT in gameplay, at least help to demonstrate some of what the utility for that will be, because that is an investment. There's nobody spending that kind of money on an NFT that they don't see as an investment of some sort.
And a great way to do that is a light paper or white paper or roadmap or econ paper or anything medium Substack. Give us something where even Coin Bureau covered Gala Games, of a well-known crypto news and project reviewer, and he didn't have that much else to go off of when he did his in-depth research when it came to scouring the internet to learn more about anything when it came to Gala Games, because there isn't any documentation out there that goes deeper than just what a layman would understand or think is great when they first enter the pearly gates of NFT crypto.
There is some cracks in their method. I'm looking at their website right now, and they still have a number of boats for sale that are way overpriced, and they still have some docks and wharfs and stuff that are way overpriced. And interestingly enough, there's a lot of avatars that are still for sale,
right.
Orcs, dwarves, and some humans as well. So, they are finding the threshold where people will buy from them.
Yeah, and all is this to say, sorry, Banjo, just all is to say where we still have, our assets. I could say confidently I still have mine and I have my own node. It's more so for the viewers currently, and then the ones who would watch afterwards, that we're diversified to learn more. We're diversified to take part in this revolution of what we know and what was, right, where we're going into the future with the decentralization of almost everything that's going to live on the blockchain. So we're not bashing them in the way that some might think if they just chimed in at the 2 hour and 30-minute mark or 2 hour and 15-minute mark. And it's all a learning curve still for us, as it will continue to be. And we just want to be that community that gives something to compare other projects to, where you can just know that everything is not just rainbows and butterflies, if you're not yourself partaking in any other projects, because a lot of people might not have the bandwidth financially to do anything other than just Star Atlas. But you could always learn more and feel good about Mirandus and wanting to achieve a goal of buying a deed. But then that's all you work towards. And once you acquired a deed, there's all these other aspects of the community and the project and how it's being developed that you might have not learned because your attention is on what you're currently invested in. So we covered different games, good and bad. All of them have bad, all of them have good. And it's just for comparison purposes to learn more.
There's just a lot of room for them to be better. That's it. Stop gouging with prices. Stop continuing to take on more projects. How about you show us what you can do with the 10 you already have? Okay. Mm-hmm. Make something happen there and help people understand what they're supporting you for and what they're building. For those of us that and put our time and effort and money into Mirandus, help us understand what we have with that, because we still don't know.
Yeah. Hold my hand.
Yeah, 100%. So in the interest of giving them a little bit of credit, I mean, let's talk about another game that we just voted on the vote didn't really matter, but to me, this one looks like it's a little bit more polished than some of the other stuff we saw. So they have a game called Legends Reborn. It is a card strategy game for those folks who like that type of game. And it's going to be PC, but we're going to watch the video in a second. To me, it looks like it's set up for mobile. And I think any P2E game that really wants to get broad expansion has to come to mobile. It's got it's a deck-based game like Magic the Gathering. I think you'll learn more from the video than their website. But it's one of those things where they've got some good concept art. Maybe the development company. I think we should add that what we share about Gala is not a reflection of the companies that are partnering with them.
It's not.
There could be some great development companies partnering with them. Our angst is about Gala, not about the game developers who go to Gala.
This particular one, it's Kung Fu Factory that's behind this one, and I just a little bit that I saw on the AMA that they did is that these guys, I mean, they're passionate about what they created, as they should be, and so this is no shade on them beyond perhaps their choice in a partner, because who knows? Maybe, I mean, this was probably the easiest path for them. They built this game, and this is often the case. They're probably not marketers. And they're like, hey, if only we could find someone that knew the marketing side of it, we can continue to be the developers and do what we love. And they found Gala in this process. So hopefully Gala takes care of them in this exchange.
You're right.
I agree. Well, let's look at the gameplay. We got a little bit of the gameplay. So, I mean, it's if you're into card games, the pace seems a little bit slow to me, but maybe that's the way these games work. I'll admit I'm not that big of a fan of these types of games. The graphics look pretty cool, but the music sucks, dude. And you need put me to sleep.
The artwork did look pretty cool, but it seemed to have a tempo that there would be a lot of hurry up and wait.
Yeah, it looks fitting for a mobile device as well.
Mm-hmm. So in that particular instance, that's a great example of there's going to be some people that like that game style and it will work for them. My question is that Gala, you just placed $36 million in NFTs on the market for this game. What is the utility of those? What do people get for that? And how do they earn in this game? Take at least one of your games like this and help me understand this. And maybe I'll have more support for what you do.
Right. And I hope the developers who partnered, maybe not knowing enough about crypto and blockchain and everything that it entails, aren't promised something that they're not going to receive, as far as enough money to then hire more developers to then actually get the game playable on a level where it's like not an alpha or not in an alpha state for so long. Because I think that's the whole point. We can promise the capital raise of these NFTs, and then you're on your own, and we'll do the best we can because we're also growing. And it's just like, we're all going to grow together, and you just got involved because we just, quote unquote, know more about how to go about this crypto space, aka make more money than you can. And then we'll see where we go, I guess.
I wonder how much of that 36 million they get.
That's another interesting. What percentage? Yeah. What's that looking like?
Well, there's been some people in chat talking about who's the problem at Gala. And I think there's probably a lot of great people that work there, but we know a few key names that seem to always come up whenever there's an issue, or who seem to come to the Gala's rescue whenever somebody starts, asking inappropriate questions on their Discord. So even in reflection of the entire team, I don't know them, so I can't speak directly towards all of them, but the people in leadership positions are the people who are creating some of the issues.
Yeah. I'm happy to call straight out. I think Eric Schirmeyer, the CEO, I think he's shady. He seems like a very greedy dude, and the things that he has said, we saw him when he was completely belligerent and they're telling people to F off and banning people and like, I can do what I want. Ha! It's like, seriously, this is the guy that's at the top of this organization. And sometimes when you have that, if it's rotten at the top, that's how it goes. Someone that we did have some respect for was a gal that showed up there for a brief moment from EA. Jane was awesome, and as we started to get to like her, she's like, I'm out of here. So
Yeah.
I don't know what that says or what she saw for her to bolt, but yeah, that's a tough situation when you have a group like that from the top down. I'm sure there's some people within Gala that want to be a part of something big and love what they do, and some people that try, but yeah, it's also hard when you have experiences with others that weren't so great or so direct and honest.
So let's well, you bring up something that is interesting, Jesse. You said Eric Schurmeyer, and for people who don't know, he was largely involved with MySpace, right? And then also, is it Zynga? Is that right?
Zynga. He was one of the co-founders of Zynga, Farmville.
Both of which built something and sold, right? That
Mm-hmm.
MySpace got built up and then sold. Zynga got built up and then sold. Maybe we're seeing the same play here. Maybe it's about building something that is sold to somebody else, either after it's already gone off the rails or
if
and
I
then
was
they go on to the next project.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's no hurry to sell right now. Look at this great model he's got. Just come up with a theme, sell millions of dollars in NFTs, don't deliver anything, and go on to the next one. And then once you have about 30 of them under your belt, then sell it to someone so you can run while it collapses.
Yeah, exactly.
And
all right, go ahead, Ray.
No, we can move on.
I was going to say, I think we've probably beat them enough. We do that about once every 3 months.
Just show me something good, man. Give me something to be
Yeah.
excited about over there. I'll throw a bone. I'll say good things when I see them.
Yeah. I mean, especially with Mirandus, I don't think any of us to any major degree have sold any of our Mirandus assets. And we all still have a lot of cautious optimism that Mirandus is a good game. Right?
Yeah. I sold a bunch, but I have over 100 exemplar avatars still. And lots of buildings and things like that. But I did get rid of some stuff.
That is called a Whitticus flex right there. But I don't think the people who are selling aren't selling stuff they plan to play. So it was stuff they planned to maybe either use as scholars or saw an investment opportunity. So I think there are some of us who have been doing that.
It makes sense with the constant inflow of node cash. For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so Fancy, what do we got with Illuvium this week?
Yeah, there have been a couple updates. I don't think we talked about it last week, but this is something we showed a while back, and I want to specifically talk about how the regional travel and the obelisk at the top. And we saw some of the examples of places we might be able to teleport to and then catch alluvials, and it's all very interesting. It's going to be
the concept art.
Yeah, they have a lot of concept art for sure. You can just scroll back forever.
And they do an interesting job with you can actually see. Now I'm getting to the point where I've seen enough of their stuff go from concept to in-game, and so now it's like, whoever has this process in place, they do a really good job of taking it the duration.
Mm-hmm. This is, as they start to work out the lore in Star Atlas, this is the type of, content I'd like to see some concept art tied into some lore, tied into some real world engine stuff.
Yeah. And I still look forward to the day where you can jump in your Star Atlas spaceship and go visit the planet Illuvium.
Definitely.
Yeah. And I love the fact that in their own Discord and for the Illuvium Discord, they share so much when it comes to development, without any second thought of trying to do some farming of likes and retweets or selling extra things that could be equipped to the land. It's just, this is what you're getting, for how they started way back in the day with the Axie Infinity back and forth. It's one thing, but for them to show us, I think they showed the most development over the course of them building the game than any other project that I've been a part of. NFT blue chip or, not.
Well, Jesse, you said something, and I don't want to get us back on Star Atlas, but one of the things that Wagner did state on the town hall is they have the SDK built where Star Atlas assets can be moved into other games. Yeah. So the likelihood, or at least the back end, is being built for that. Sorry, Fancy.
Oh no, that's all right. Yeah, so they also had this footage. It shows the fire shield, and it's just all the animations you can do with it. And yeah, so they also announced recently how they are doing their auto battler private beta, and that pretty much means 500 people. Then there's 500 spots, and they're going to give it out to people who apply. And um, yeah, you have to submit your computer specs. They ideally want people who can play the game, so
Yeah.
yeah, you have to check that. And you write a bit about your gaming experience, your Discord name, and then cross your fingers.
Are you gonna put your name in, Fancy?
Oh yeah, I did that straight away. Pretty much, it's out already. But yeah, that auto battle is going to be fun. We've looked at a lot of the footage in the past.
You know, one of the things they've done that I really like here is that from the art concept all the way to these shots we're seeing here is the color palette and their unique style, the way that they build out the creatures and also the landscape behind it. And I love when projects do that. I mean, again, even throwing something positive from an art concept out towards Gala, I like the color palette and stuff for the artwork they've shown for Mirandus. Whether that comes to life is another story, but the palette and even the blockiness is unique to that world. And I think that Illuvium does a good job of creating their own unique spin. It doesn't look like they just took a whole bunch of something else. Looks like they took the time to create their own unique art.
Yeah, it really feels like a grown-up Pokemon to me, and not like a rip, but like a natural, mature evolution.
For sure, yeah. And yeah, I just wanted to shout out pretty much that if you haven't signed up yet, you should go to their Discord, and it's in the announcement. Excuse
Very
me.
good. Well, I hope you get it, Fancy. I not only for your sake, because I know you like the game, but also for us, so you can share what you can share at least.
I'll bring back game footage.
Yeah, screen record everything.
But I can replay a bit we have just saved from the past if you guys want for a bit. It doesn't have to be all of it.
Sure.
Cool.
This already feels more robust than what we just showed you from Gala.
Oh yeah.
A little glowing tentacle creature looks a trip.
It would be cool if they give away rewards for there's like a leaderboard for this. So if it gets to the highest ground that week, you might get a reward or lots of potential.
Especially with this music.
So do we understand the gameplay enough? Does it look like you start with 3 and then you add more after?
Yeah, you get more resources each round. So you start with all the creatures, maybe one of them, and then next round you get to as you get more styles.
You said something useful there. You want to share that again, Fancy? I was asking, like, it looks like, do we understand gameplay enough? It looks like you start with 3 cards, and then as those play out, then you're adding more. So what is the gameplay like?
So you start with like a handful of cards. You can, I guess you can rotate the ones you have in your deck as you start, like many other card games. But you get more cards per turn. You get more mana that's capped or whatever they use as a resource. But you get to build more comprehensive synergies and structures if you are in the game longer.
Interesting. Yeah.
Very nice.
Anything
else?
What was the date you were saying that on the that initial limited group play that they're going to have?
No date, but registration's open, so that could be closing any day or in a month.
Cool.
I'll just go get it done if I was you. Cool. Well, that's pretty much everything.
Awesome.
Fantastic. Ray, you got anything with Axie?
Oh, damn right I do. So there is some major developments, not so much with the game Axie Infinity, but Sky Mavis's Ronin, the Ronin network is finally live. You were able to claim your Ron token if you were providing liquidity for either SLP ETH or AXS ETH. And now, if you jump back on, you can see that there's a ETH Ron pair, so you can still earn rewards. And I'm going to share my screen here. And Ron is live. So this is basically, like I said earlier, the equivalent of Steam, and you'll probably see this coming out more so with other projects as well. This is just the natural way. Like if you own any NFTs, you'll earn rewards, and the project creators will incentivize what you're holding, whether it be tokens or future airdrops that you would know are coming. So it's pretty interesting. So you can claim your Ron. Like I said, you could definitely check out the light paper, which is another thing that naturally happens if you're chiming in and not knowing what projects are supposed to do to educate and help their community understand what's going on with the project and with how your money is going to be used. And then you got the free transactions that users will receive free transactions for holding Axie's land in their Ronin wallets. So if you are an owner of assets, then you will have transactions that you can not need to spend Ron with, so you have free transactions. So here's a little 30 seconds, not even a little clip when they announced Ron was live. There goes Wooly, the little duck on her back. So that's a looped video, and it's pretty cool because it's been a long time since 2018 that we ever got to see these types of videos, and where the development has been and where it's gone or how it's improved. So it's pretty interesting that that we have these videos, and the team has learned a lot along the way, and they're sharing much more. So it's good to see. But here's some slides from the actual light paper. So you got 9 months after release and prior to token launch, Ronin has already seen significant adoption. And I've showed like charts previously of bar charts or line charts from different websites. And so you got 250,000 unique daily active addresses currently. And this is what we're talking about. The game, the daily active users are there. The user base is there. They're ahead of the game when it comes to a lot of different projects, even Illuvium in this way. There's a lot of people waiting for games to come out to play, but actively playing currently. Axie Infinity is definitely leading the way. So Katana is the automated market maker for the Ronin DEX, the Ronin blockchain, and it's the number 2 DEX by weekly active users. There's 5 billion deposited value, and there's 15% of all NFT transactions in the year 2021 that happened on Ronin. And this is before it was live with the token. And there's 2 million plus Ronin wallets downloaded. So this is all information that just gives me the most confidence compared to other projects for keeping my money in there longer than other projects, because there's just so much more that you'll feel comfortable with as the team shares. So here's another slideshow of just the allocation of the Ron token. So you have a 30-30 split between Sky Mavis and the community, and with 300 million. And the staking rewards and ecosystem funds are at 25 to 15. And the holders, I'm going to say hodlers, hodlers of Ron will be able to stake their Ron tokens with a validator to earn Ron rewards and participate in governance of the network. So fee structure and use of the Ron treasury are potential governance topics. And the treasury, mind you, has a lot of Ethereum, over 50,000 Ethereum, and an amount of AXS that I don't even know yet, or it's out there. I just don't remember what it is. But the maximum supply of Ron is going to be a 1 billion total supply.
So
Yep.
So, question for you before you go further. I saw someone that kind of shared this question earlier. What should I do with my Ron bag? I think that's what a lot of people are wondering, including myself. So with Ron, the rewards are going to be based on the transaction fees. Do we know when those transaction fees start?
So they currently are taking place. There's going to be a decrease in the amount of free transactions anyone will have. This is just a graphic of the allocation, and so there's been a lot of community conversation on Twitter about people having right out the gate 23 free transactions plus if you have any axes, which we'll also get to as we slide along. You're getting more free transactions if you hold land, depending on what land plot that is. The axes, depending on which axis it is, and the rarity for that axis. So I have a good amount of free transactions that I'll never have to pay fees for when it comes to the Ronin blockchain. But they're going to decrease it, and in the light paper they stress that it is this way to get everyone comfortable and used to using the chain. So it's not a continual thing that's going to take place. It's going to incentivize people to buy into having their own team, so then maybe send some transactions, but it's not going to be a reoccurring thing every day. And if so, it's going to be very little, if any, at all. For those who didn't know, you're not just going to have free transactions all the time unless you actually had land and have been invested in the space of holding assets.
So you're go ahead if you weren't finished. I had another question. But
yeah,
so with Ron now, so people have a bag of Ron that they got from the staking that they've already done, which I mean for some of us was a little bit painful. I mean, it's market conditions are a big part of that, but I ended up with about 2,000 Ron from what I had in, but my initial going into that is about 50% of what it was at the time. Again, market conditions, but that raises the question. So with Ron now, if you're going to go and do like a Ron ETH pair, is now the time to do that? Because if I look at the market as a whole, when Ron came out, a couple days ago, I think it went up to 368 or something like that. And now is it about 260? So if that suggests that there's room for Ron to grow, aren't you looking at a boatload of impermanent loss if you match it up with an ETH pair? Because if it actually does recover and do well, it's probably going to do a lot better than what ETH is doing camped out where it's at. So don't you run the risk of some significant impermanent loss at this time if you do that with Ron?
Yes, I would think so. And that's why on February 3rd, the rewards are going to be lowered for what you get from each pool, which is the Ron, SLP, and AXS pools, come with a pair to ETH. And a lot of people in conversations are going to pull out as after or on the 3rd because of that potential continual impermanent loss that everyone suffered from with the downturn, and then also speculation and SLP and the future of the project and all these things that didn't shine a positive light in the last couple of months. But there's going to be Ron single-sided staking that comes into play. So my personal strategy is to do that as well, not stay in any liquidity pool, because the chances of these tokens going up now as we're hopefully crawling our way out, if you want to check out charts for any of these types of cryptocurrencies, is going upwards. Or we don't know completely, but there would be impermanent loss. You're right, Jess, and I don't want to lose anything else anymore. So I'm only taking advantage of the high APR right now up until the 3rd, as the team announced, and then the rewards would be lowered. So I would definitely just hold my Ron, and I'm gonna buy a shit ton more because it's similar. This is a similar experience to when AXS was released. It was during the bear market, where hopes were low and there wasn't really much attention on anything because everyone was in the shitter, and they might have lost a lot of money. And then the project released with their token, and it kind of blew up, and it was under the radar, just as I think it has been for a long time. Ronin specifically, with all of its daily active users and how it's been up on the charts for all this time, not being actually live. So there's a lot of potential, and the team has great plans. If you go through the light paper on the different IPs that they're going to have join the game.
You shared a slide there a moment ago that said something like 15%. Was that all last year? 15% of all NFT transactions?
Oh yeah.
were on Ronin, and that's all Axie. That was all Axie transactions. That's
Yeah,
pretty
only for
wild.
Axie. It is.
So, I mean, my question now is like, what is that looking like? Is it going down? Is it maintaining? I think the best and most exciting news that for me personally, that I would love to hear this year, and the sooner the better, would be some other new project
Mhm.
making use of the Ronin chain. If that happens,
Absolutely.
then it gets really exciting.
Absolutely, and that's their main goal now. After this was the biggest release I think by far. Even Axie, like this is just such a major release, and I know that there's a lot of free time. I could only imagine that there's a lot of free time now and free hands to focus on building out or acquiring and helping as they do now with the recent release of the community like the community building fund or grant proposals that are being sent into Axie Infinity or Sky Mavis to help fund and give grants to people who want to build mini games for Axie Infinity, utilizing those assets. But there's definitely going to be games that are going to come on to the Mavis hub. Um, it's gonna be interesting, and we'll see which one is the first one because
Right.
there's a lot of conversation of GHOS in talks with the community, but also in interviews saying that they just don't want to have anyone come on as they're the number one essentially in the space. It would need to be something that a project that's kind of worth
Yeah.
supporting and helping grow out.
And as a case study, you want that first one to be one that is primed to do well so that it can be like, okay, here's
Right.
it works well. Now you're going to see a bunch of other projects come in that direction because of how well the first one does. So choose the first one
Right.
wisely for sure.
Definitely, and they do take their time. I must say, as I've just been along the ride this whole time for years, and I like that method because along the way you see the progress and you get to know and understand the community as it changes, but the team as well and what they're doing. So just to briefly cover this, there's going to be validators, and so far the ones in front of you are the ones that are live, and then there's going to be many more, totaling 100, I think, by the end of the year. I gotta check out the white paper again in that section, but they're going to have many validators where you can then stake your RON tokens with, and here's just the total max supply again, and it's going to be what 24 and a half years of issuance, up until So there's going to be a max total supply of 1 billion, and will be reached 294 months after issuance begins. So that's a long while. And let's keep moving here.
So 3 years out, even till we get to a $500 million, looks like in there.
Right.
Mhm.
And so just to cover this briefly, the Katana is the automated market maker decentralized exchange built on top of Ronin, and you can swap between ERC20 tokens. There's only being 4 of them, and 90 days ago you were able to farm resources, RON specifically, and here on the bottom you can check out those fees, the trading fees. So there's 0.25% of each trade is paid in to liquidity providers, and then there's 0.05 taken as a protocol fee for the RON treasury. And if you can see at the bottom, excuse me, there's a 2.25% of each trade is paid to liquidity providers. Oh, same thing. Why do they have that twice? Okay.
Do we know what a
That's good.
fee is going to be? Like if I'm, a general transaction for the average person, like what might I be paying for that transaction?
No. But actually there is. It's 0.00015 RON. Like it's a very inexpensive network to trade on as far as signing transaction costs are.
Mhm.
It's very cheap. I didn't pull it up, but it's also in the light paper as they're during the end of the light paper. Oh, you'll see it. It's going to be there. But here we go. So if you check out the bottom section of this, we have the rewards and what they're going to look like after February 3rd. So for the AXS ETH pool, you'll have 24,000 RON per day. SLP ETH pool is still going to be the highest of the 3, but it's going to be at 132 if you're still interested in providing liquidity for RON rewards. And then you have RON ETH, which is going to place second.
What does that compare to what it has been like for the ETH and AXS? It's 24K a day going forward or for a while, but what was it in the past?
Oh, it was like 500 it was pretty high
Okay.
right out the gates when it went live. It was ridiculous, and then it kind of simmered down. But it's been hovering around 100 and with around what it was at the time for a long while, over 100% APR. There was a 2 billion lockup, and it was around a couple of hundred for if you were partaking in that. But now it's around 150, 170. Last I checked, it fluctuates because people are moving their AXS and mind you, there's a lot of whales that have Ron, but again, it's there'll be drops in the price of Ron, but we're talking long term here. You know, the paper hands, like with any project, will exit and take advantage of the prices and whatnot. But
and I think for the people who don't understand how liquidity pools work, that distribution per day is proportionate to your stake in the pool. So if you have 0.1% of the pool, you get 0.1 of 24,000 RON per day.
Yeah.
Right. And there's an APY that can be calculated as well, because you're restaking on a 24-hour basis your rewards if you have AXS being staked. So, you know, you might see 98%, which is fantastic if you're just APR for AXS staking currently. But if you're compounding that and restaking your AXS rewards, you're more at like a 200 APY, because you're essentially, if it's 3xing your amount in AXS every year, then you're 3xing the amount of what you're earning. And then if AXS triples, then you've 9xed your potential earnings instead of. So a lot of people just say, oh, that's not a high enough APR. But if you're able to recompound that and restake it, it's in the long run, if you stick to the schedule, it works out. So this is another feature of the Ronin's chain that they've created for everyone, and it helps more so the scholarship managers and these big guilds that have thousands of scholars that they have to pay out. Some, since this has been released, created their own bots and ways and methods to mass pay their scholars in the Discord, different Discord bots. But now you can do it via the actual exchange, the actual DEX itself, and it's called Scatter. So what you simply need to do is just write out or copy and paste every address of your scholar and use a dot for the decimal point if there is a need. But you can just then type in the amount of SLP, and once you approve, if you can choose between the different currencies, SLP, AXS, ETH, or USDT, and you'd be able to send everyone in one shot their payment. So, a lot of people in the community were like, "Oh, you're not supporting, AXS. You're not supporting scholarship managers." But sure enough, this is going to help everyone. It's just that much easier now. So that was pretty interesting. Great feature. And then moving on here, like I was mentioning earlier, you're going to be able to have 3 transactions a day for holding a normal Axie, 10 for a Mio, 1 for an Origin Axie, 100 for an Origin Axie, and then 500 for a Mystic Axie. And then, likewise, similarly to the land, you have 20 for a Savannah, 60 for a Forest, 180 for an Arctic, and 350 for a Mystic Land Plot. And then it's on the bottom. It's just a reminder, it says, please note that all accounts, both old and new, will start with 20 transactions to usher in this new era. This program will be adjusted and scaled down over time, but has been implemented to allow for a smoother transition into this new era. So it's not a constant, and don't expect, unless you have assets in the game, to have any type of free transactions, down the line. There's no fixed date on this either yet. And then wrapping it up here, we have just 3 different types of videos that you can go watch. This one was on Twitch soon after the 28th. This is the 3rd development chat that the team has started doing, and it's going to be a regular thing. I think, I'm not sure the schedule, but definitely if you want to learn more about the recent Ron drop and all that involves Axie and Ron, definitely check it out. And after that Twitch video, this was a leak that they gave, and this is what you call a kitchen in Axie Infinity. So this is what your kitchen will look like on your plot of land. This is, again, what I'm guessing. If this is a kitchen, this is what you'll see. And there's a lot of excitement around just more things being released to show the community that they're moving on in development. So that was pretty sweet. And then this is the second video with Dave vs. Axie, a great community member for the space. very informative gentleman, and he goes deep and asks more hard-hitting questions than a lot of other people that GeoHouse had interviews with. So check him out. This is Twitter. This is his Twitter up here, daveversaxi.eth. And this is a great information you can. And there's some things that were said that weren't said on the Twitter space. So check that out. And last but not least, this is another Paul Barron network. He has a couple of 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. I don't watch much of his things, but we have another interview with one of the co-founders here, Psych Out. So definitely check that out if you want to hear more about what's been happening in the space with Axie Infinity. And that's all.
That's all
for
about.
Axie. Yeah.
That's it, all right, guys. I gotta go.
What? Well, almost at 3 hours, guys. Do we want to cover some industry news, or do we want to push it to next week?
Well, Ash covered it this week.
That's true. You know, there was one thing that did happen this week, which I'm noticing a trend, which I think is really cool, and it's hip hop's kind of doorway into the metaverse. You know, we saw Snoop Dogg, who's done some stuff. We talked about some of the sneakerhead stuff that's showing up. There is a new one. There is another group getting into the metaverse.
Wu-Tang Clan.
Wu-Tang.
Huh.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. It looks. When I first watched it, I was just like, it looked pretty real. Then I had to take a closer look.
Huh.
Yeah, I love how Pleaser DAO, they actually obtained the only CD. It was, I forget how they came across it, but they basically it was an auction, or they bought it off of that guy who was selling these. Okay, so there was a gentleman who went to jail who made a lot of money off of these EpiPens. I think if not something else, but it was to help save lives, and he jacked up the price. And he actually had to go to court, and it was put in prison. And he owned and bought the CD, the last CD for the Wu-Tang Clan, and through MakerDAO, which is not MakerDAO, Pleaser DAO, they actually got it and spent the money through the DAO to have it, and they're gonna now release the songs for everyone to hear that no one ever was able to hear because it was their last CD. So it's pretty cool.
Well, that's awesome. I remember that trial, and I remember that being the one of one that he bought.
Yeah,
not one of one of an NFT, but of a release. And I came late to the party to Wu-Tang Clan. I listened to different rap when I was a kid. But Hulu has a great series on Wu-Tang Clan. It's really good, and it kind of shows how they got where they started and where they got to. But the idea that they're getting into the metaverse, or as they call it, the Metaverse, and I'm not sure what that means.
Method Man.
But it's MEF, not method. So
yeah, but there was a Twitter space with Method Man, and he goes into a lot of explaining what why and what is happening and how they're getting into the space with this video that you showed.
Got it. Yeah. And it looks like a pretty established metaverse already. It's a company called Leap In, and they have some NFTs that are already available. So it sounds like he's tagging on to kind of like Snoop Dogg with Sandbox, right? He's already jumping into it. But I think it's cool. I think it's interesting to see which groups are jumping in and innovating quicker than others.
Yeah. I think that all of these little satellite projects are going to further what the metaverse will become. But one of the big challenges, no matter, even if they do it incredibly right, even if I enter in this metaverse and there's just like, it's incredible to see, if it's just me and 12 other people, it's not going to be that exciting. You have to kind of like develop the use case and the community to take part in there. But also, are these all going to be, eventually will we see these things be developed so that they can co-interact with other metaverses? Mm-hmm. That to me is where it's going to get exciting.
Agree. We've already seen internationally some singers start to get into the metaverse, but the way we're starting to see the hip hop community go into the metaverse, I'm wondering if that's not one of the first American acts that we're going to see do a live show in the metaverse.
Yeah, I think it'll be that and lots of DJs.
Yeah, DJs are natural, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's 3 hours where we went long today, a little bit long. Why don't we go around and see who's got anything to say before we wrap up for the day? So, Ray, anything?
Yeah, guys, thank you for spending your time with us on this beautiful day. And just like, subscribe, put your notifications on for the next 2 weeks if you didn't do it before for any reason, because we're going to have some pretty good interviews or guests coming onto the show. And join us, join the guild, and so you can learn more about Star Atlas and other games that we talk about other than what we talk about here on the show.
Fantastic, Ray. Thank you. Fancy, anything?
Thanks for watching. 3 hours is the longest we've done. I think it
Record
is.
breaker.
Yeah.
You got it. Jesse.
Yeah, just one of the things that makes this show special is all of the community there. You guys sharing your thoughts and comments and answering even things that we don't know as we're sharing them. We're all in this together, so appreciate that. This is going to be an amazing year for new projects coming out and to see the fruit of the projects we're already involved in. And just the clarification, even for the projects that it seems like I'm throwing shade on, at the end of the day, I think we all collectively here just want good things for the metaverse as a whole.
Yeah, expect the best and then allow them to build up to it. I agree, Jesse. And thanks everyone for listening. Again, we have 2 guests coming up over the next 2 weeks. We've got Chipto, who is working directly with he's a Star Atlas developer, which will be fantastic. And then we've also got the Metaverse Mining Alliance, who will be joining us the next week to talk about DAOs. So have a great week, everyone. We'll see you next time. Thank you.
Any minute now.
Maybe
Come
not.
on.
Maybe not.
Maybe we're still here.
Are you ready for the next evolution in gaming? Blockchain games are here. Why just play when you can play to earn? Enter the Star Atlas Metaverse with Rome. Star Atlas is a grand strategy game of space exploration, territorial conquest, political domination, and so much more. Rome is a premier guild of the Oni faction within Star Atlas. Rome is here to play and to earn. Want to take part in the action? Rome is accepting new citizens. Join the Rome Guild on Discord to learn more at gorome.io.